want to get at least the first 2 done if possible, and if all 4 if possible, but may not. So we'll see. And are you guys ready?
Yes.
Okay. And welcome to G.I. Joe Bravo Team. I am your host, Aaron Brotherhead Moss. And joining me this month, I've got a full crew. We have Jarrod, the yard sale drawer artist guy, Alberich. Hey, Jarrod.
What's up, man? I hope that you're introducing us all alphabetically.
No, because I am not the order of battle. So
I am Alberich Jarrod C. My specialty is drawing on things people throw away, and my serial number is classified.
Very good. There you go. See, I didn't even think about doing that. You're ahead of the game, Jarrod. And also joining us, we have Mr. Abraham, Brad, Dr. Mindfart or Brain Fart. Hey, Brad.
You know, my real name was supposed to remain classified and unknown, Aaron. So thanks for spelling it.
Let me do this again. Also joining us is real name classified, code name Dr. Brain Fart.
Somehow that's worse.
Usually. Glad you could join us, Brad.
I'm glad to be here too.
Also joining us for this very special episode, we have Mr. Reitzel, Kevin, aka Raider Nerd.
What is up, gentlemen? And I am also proudly displaying a yard sale artist original right over here. I got Duke looking over my shoulder here.
Love it.
Very
And
nice.
also my love for G.I. Joes and Cobras with their animals. I got, of course, the new Mutton Junkyard next to the Super 7 version. And also we have a very special guest today. Freedom came by to say hi.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Glad he could join us. Yeah, I got my Mutton Junkyard the other day myself. Here he is.
Yeah, look at that. Did you put the mean face or the happy face? Is that the
Right now, I've
happy
got the happy face on him.
I like the happy pup face. Yeah.
Yes. Did an unboxing yesterday or Friday, and yeah, I switched out and put the happy face on.
I was a little bummed that Mutt didn't come with the happy face. So whatever.
I don't know if Mutt has a happy face. Also joining us from the land of Australia, we have Mr. Finn, David. Hey, Dave. What's up, Dave?
I'm good. I'm good, guys. My code name is Mayhem, and obviously firmly in the Cobra camp. Yeah, I'm all good. I got my my Mutton Junkyard on the way, but I got my Desert Snake Eyes Commando, and I am so happy with it. I've been telling Aaron all about the long journey to get it. It finally arrived, and he's proudly on my shelf right now, looking at me as I'm recording this.
Glad to hear.
And I got Viper as well, and who apparently has almost no appearances in any media, but I love her.
Yeah, I guess maybe Jarrod may have a bit more information on her. I think she showed up in the run they did. Is that right, Jarrod, or am I mistaken on that?
This is Alberich Jarrod C. Serial number classified. I got nothing.
I looked at. She showed up in I forget which one it was. Now I get confused on them, but
was it like a Devil's Due? Is it?
I want to say it was Devil's Due.
Well, maybe we haven't gotten there yet, but it doesn't ring a bell for me.
I can tell you she's showing up in my dreams regularly wearing the skull mask, so I'm happy with that.
So, anyways, moving on. This month, we're here to talk about the Order of Battle. Right now, we're going to look at the first 2 issues. Hopefully, we get it done. Of the Order of Battle. This was basically G.I. Joe. Another way of this came out around the same time as the G.I. Joe versus Transformers. Special Missions has just started. This was G.I. Joe's heyday. So, G.I. Joe basically took all the file cards and reprinted them with a drawing and collected them into the Order of Battle, which was a 4-issue series. Issues 1 and 2 looked at the Joes. Issue 3 looks at Cobra, and issue 4 looks at the vehicles. So this episode, we're going to look at issues 1 and 2 of the Order of Battle. So on the screen, for those at home watching right now, we have the cover up. There was a wraparound cover. As you can see, we've got Duke with a flag with some new recruits and some old recruits around him.
I thought that was Hawk.
Actually, it probably is Hawk. Again, I get confused on Duke and Hawk in the comic because
Yeah, I think that is Hawk. Yeah.
I think you are right. Yeah, Duke had the longer hair.
Dial tone getting right in front of the cover. Go dial tone. Look at that.
And the guy who was snapping the picture was like, God damn it, dial tone.
Yes, Dial Tone,
Yeah.
front center, one of the newer guys. Cover Girl, Doc, Raker, and is that Flash? I believe in the front behind Doc.
I think if you look at the back cover, I think it's Gung Ho in the very, very, very back, which is kind of ironic with a name called Gung Ho.
Let's go and flip to the back. There we go. Yeah, we got Gung Ho in the back. We got
With a
a
very
lot of
blocky
individuals
tank.
on the back cover. Got some of the new ones: Beachhead, Low Light, and then we got there's Duke right behind him. There's Duke.
Mhm.
Lift Ticket. We got all these Joes. We got a tank there in the back. Very nice.
Ooh,
So this is a wraparound
Oh,
cover.
perfect.
So
Can I ask a question? Who's the guy with? Is it a black guy right in the middle with kind of green visors on? Is that Stalker?
no, that would be
No,
Alpine.
it's Alpine.
Alpine.
Cool. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. He looks cool.
Oh yes, yes. So the Order of Battle, it came out. Just 1 second. Let me bring up the first issue. On the wrong page. Try that again. Okay. So the Order of Battle came out November. Well, actually, the cover date was November of 1980. Sell date approximately was August the 12th, 1986. The cover price was $1.25, and the editor was Jack Morrell, looks like. According to
I thought
Mike.
you were going to say Jack Warner, the old owner of Warner Brothers.
No, it's
involved
not
in
the Warner
this.
Brothers. So
The editor. Oh, go ahead and scan in another file card. I'm the editor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
just they took the file card, scanned them in, and had a full length picture of the characters, which we're going to see. And as it says on the cover, this was the official GI Joe handbook.
Mm.
So this lets you know officially.
I was so excited. I was so excited when these released. I just thought that was the greatest thing.
Same here.
I think it's fantastic. So I've got a question. This betrays my lack of knowledge. So these are literally the file cards, like what was on the file cards at the time, and then put into the comic.
Yes, there may have been some corrections or some edits to it. Yeah, it's basically the file cards
I think that's super cool.
that they gathered together and gave a drawing and gathered together.
Cool. And Larry wrote these file cards. Is that right? Back in the
Yes,
day?
yeah. Larry, from my understanding, Larry wrote all the file cards. According to the book here, Herb Trimpe, you guys may have heard of him, was the penciler.
Yep, I know him. Yeah,
Joe
I know him.
Del Bito was the inker. John Morelli again was the editor, which we're going to find out next issue, or the second issue. I don't know how good of a job he did at editing this. Tom DeFalco was the executive editor, and Jim Suter was the editor in chief.
Awesome.
So the first page of the comic gives us a listing of all the characters in this issue. We have Ace all the way through Low Light.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to go.
Can we just give our quick thoughts on the cover real quick?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. So let's get the cover. Kevin, since
I just want to give a shout out to Cover Girl with the Mac 10. I love that. Classic 80s weapon. There you go. Spraying, praying.
Also joining us in the chat, we have Heinz. Hey, Heinz, how you doing, buddy? Glad you could join us. So, Jarrod, any thoughts on the cover real quick before we move on to the actual issue?
Sure. I really liked, and I've never paid enough attention to until you showed us the back cover. That smoke effect in the background is really good. It's an incredibly good smoke effect, to be hidden on the back cover. It's got that tank sort of cresting the hill. The Joe's all running down. I feel bad for Deep Six because of all that gear. He's probably like, but that smoke effect, man, that is nice. Like that, because I've seen this comic many, many times over the years, but you don't tend to look at the back cover a lot. So it's kind of got by me. So it was kind of like a neat surprise when you scrolled over there. But yeah, definitely a cool looking cover.
And Brad, any thoughts on the cover of this issue?
Well, it's Herb Trimpe, so obviously it's going to be a 5 out of 5 for me. But I really do like the wraparound cover. both for reasons that Jarrod just went into, but also the fact that if you look at both I guess pages of it, I mean, they did a great job of incorporating every Joe who appears in this particular issue. And I guess I would assume the same thing is with the second issue. So if you look at the front cover and the back cover of this, it's everybody you see on the cover is going to get a page in this, which is pretty exciting if you were a fan back then.
Kevin, any other thoughts on the cover?
I remember looking at this, and I just like how the detail, and I kind of questioned like who was in front and who was in back and stuff like that. But it was just nice to see a majority. And I was mistaken. I thought Gung Ho was in the back, but no, I think that's probably Leatherneck, because Gung Ho is obviously right there. With just the vest towards the back. But I'm guessing Leatherneck in the back there. Yeah, maybe. But it's just fun to look at who's who. There's one guy looks like he's holding a shotgun above his head, like he's doing some drills. I can't quite figure who that is. But I love seeing Dusty, and this is fun. Just fun to figure out. Even Cutter's there. It's like I'm going right next to Deep Six. He's my buddy.
And David, any thoughts on the cover?
Love it. The back cover was especially interesting to me. I'd not seen any of these, but no, I hadn't noticed that smoke effect till just now. And the front cover as well, I think is classic. Like, it's right down the line. G.I. Joe. I don't know why this is dial tone gets so much room at the front, but I like the flag, and it's got that little eagle on top of the flagpole, which is cool. No, it's a cool cover. Sets the scene. You know what I mean? Sets the scene big time.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, great cover. Yeah, I like that. They, like you guys said, they got everyone on the they were able to get everyone on the cover, on the front and back. Yeah, to the wraparound. So yeah, you get a chance to get everybody on there that's going to show up in this issue. Yeah, as Jarrod said, that smoke and the tank in the background, just awesome. I bought this when it first came out. Jarrod, when did you get this, or first see this one?
Oh man, probably when it first came out on the rack. I was not paying attention as I usually do on the show when you say what year it came out. Did you say 85 or 86?
No, 86.
Okay, and that tells me I'm guessing here, but that tells me that it's right about the same time, or maybe slightly after the handbooks of the Marvel Universe started coming out, and it's just so very in that vein,
It's got that feel, doesn't it?
Yeah, and my brother and I were definitely picking up those Marvel handbooks, so I'm almost certain this was a spinner rack pickup for us as well.
And I was just looking at Mike's Amazing World to see if when the Marvel books came out. It wasn't this month, so.
I also mentioned I love the fact that it's got the black Spidey emblem on it, because I've always loved that emblem, which was in a lot of the 80s and 90s comics, in the 80s especially. So it gets bonus points for having that black Spidey there.
Right, yes, for the direct edition. That's a good catch. Yeah.
Yeah, just 1 second. And I was just looking real quick when it came out.
I think I got this at the comic store, because I think around this time I finally found a comic store and I didn't have to get it off the 7-Eleven spindle rack. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a good feeling.
Looks like the first official handbook of the Marvel Universe came out in 83 and 84. And then the second set came out 85 through 88. So this would have been during the second set of the Marvel Universe.
There you go.
And also over at DC, they'd had theirs Who's Who book. It came out.
Back in the day when you could actually put out this kind of stuff and it would fly off the shelves. That's how much comics were selling, back then. Imagine,
Plus, there was 2 regular series for G.I. Joe plus these 2 limited series. So yeah, this was.
But mind you, I would love it if they did it now with updated. I'd be all for it.
I think you can make a pretty strong argument that 1986 was probably the biggest year for G.I. Joe, or at least the biggest they ever had in the 80s, because we had the cartoon going daily, weekday afternoons by this point.
Yeah,
we had the mainline book hit the 50th issue. you have the launch of special missions, and then you have this order of battle. Like Marvel could have slapped the GI Joe logo on a potato, and it probably would have sold.
Yeah.
So
Hey, I would have gone. I read
Potato.
the hot potato. You know, there you go.
Yeah.
I still have my GI Joe hot potato.
Yeah.
And so, Brad, did I ask you if you bought this one off the stand or?
I can't tell you how or when I bought it, other than I bought it, because I think when it came out, I was just moving from North Carolina back to Canada, and to my horror, I moved to a small town that at that point did not have a comic book store. So I would have had to get my parents to drive me to the next town over, about 45 minutes away.
Subscription.
Well, were they at a comic book store there? And I think I must have picked it up there, because I don't think it was really hard finding GI Joe comics in my town until we got a comic book store. I kind of had to save my money, and anytime we'd go to Kingston or Ottawa, I'd go in and I would just go to where they keep the back issues of GI Joe, and I would just load up on them. And I think I may have grabbed these as a group a few months later. So, and I didn't even know it had come onto the marketplace or into the stores, because I wasn't able to get the GI Joe comics that would have advertised it at the same time. It was like every 3 months I got to buy comics, but so I think
you did it the hard way. You did it the hard way.
Yeah, it was a different time back then. It was the 80s.
Yeah.
It was
All right.
Things were sparse.
No, good for you, man. You got there. That's what matters.
I was determined.
And Kevin, you said that you picked it up.
At this time, I discovered my local comic book store. I knew that there was more comics out there than what was on my 7-Eleven spindle rack, and I started learning about how to take care of comics as well. So
There you go.
I have all of my original copies.
Why are you looking
with
at
me.
Brad?
I have all of my original copies that I will be perusing through during this right here. Check this out. So, yeah,
Wow,
this one open right here. So,
Very nice.
to break the seal on that, when I opened these bad boys up, it was like old comic smell. It brought me back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And David, when was your first experience with Order of Battle? I know you weren't into
My first experience of Order of Battle was last night. When I, mind you, for someone like me who has done a lot of catching up over the last couple of years, but getting a chance to sit down alphabetically and go through every single one of them was actually really good for my knowledge and also for placing things. Because when you learn a lot of stuff very fast, it gets a bit jumbled. So last night I sat down and read through all 4 of them, and it was fun actually.
All right, well, let's go and get started on the issue then.
Yay!
We're going to go and skip the list of names. We'll come to them as we come to them. So the first one up is Ace. I'll take this one. He's the fighter pilot. His file name is Armbuster, Brad J. We're not going to write his social security number. His primary military specialty is fixed wing pilot. Secondary is intelligence operations. He was born in Providence, Rhode Island. He's a captain, apparently. His information is Ace would rather fly than do anything else. During high school, he worked after school and weekends to pay for flying lessons. Spent 1 year flying pipelines in Alaska and 2 years stunt flying for movies. Enlisted USAF at age 22. Duty most previous to GI Joe assignment, senior instructor, USAF Fighter Weapons Squadron, the Aggressors. Pilot Combat Training School. He's qualified expert. Ace has one major characteristic flaw: cutthroat poker. A predilection for gambling would ordinarily disqualify an applicant for the GI Joe team, but in Armbuster's case, you can hardly call it gambling since he never loses. That's why we call him Ace. And then we got a nice picture of Ace holding his helmet, standing there on the side.
I thought it'd be kind of fun, like Ace's most iconic moment that we can remember. I'm going to go with that one issue where he fights the other Cobra.
Wasn't it Wild Weasel?
Wild Weasel.
Wild Weasel, yes.
Yes.
That's his most iconic moment, I think.
I agree. Yeah, I don't think I ever had this. I didn't get because he came with the I was gonna say Conquest, but that's not right.
Sky Striker.
Sky Striker. Thank you. Jesus Christy crunchies. He came with the Sky Striker. I never had the Sky Striker. That came out right before I got into figures, buying the toys. I remember playing with that at my cousin's house back in Nebraska. I've talked about. His name's Brad. Or Kyle. Kyle Brad. That's Brad Kyle.
They're both dumb names.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But yeah, so I never had this figure myself, but yeah, I remember playing with it at my cousin's house. Jared, any thoughts on Ace?
Sure. In many ways, Ace is the closest GI Joe to represent myself since I was in the Air Force and I was a captain.
And
Other than
Brad.
that, I've never flown a plane, and I don't gamble, and I'm not particularly handsome. And you know what? I'm nothing like Ace. But anyway,
We're both captains.
I do think it's cool that there's very few officers in the GI Joe ranks, and I think it's neat that this is good attention to detail by Larry because he got a lot of things right. So I just wanted to point those out real quick.
That's
All
what
pilots, saying all is a dangerous thing. The vast majority of pilots are officers. And for him to have reached the status that he would probably need to be in 03 to have gone to fighter weapons school and all that stuff. So that's a timely accurate. It said that he got in the Air Force at the age of 22, which is the age you would be if you graduated from an ROTC program or the academy. I think Ace went to the academy. I don't remember for certain. You just read it. You think I could, but whatever. So there's a lot right militaristically about his backstory. And I think that's just a lot of Larry coming through.
Nice. Yeah. Larry was and that's one reason I think why I didn't like the animal and the more extreme like Cobra Law and stuff, because he was very military and detail oriented like that. Brad, thoughts on your namesake here, Brad? Oh.
On the other Brad, yeah. The only thought I have with Ace is how are they going to do him in classified without building a 1/6 scale Sky Striker to go along with them? Are they going to skip over him, or are they going to do something?
Well, they may just have the figure. They did that for Copperhead. They don't have the water Moxican, but they do have a classified Copperhead.
Yeah, no, I never had the Sky Striker growing up. I for some reason it just, I guess, slipped past my radar. If that makes any kind of sense, I was aware of it. I think friends had it. A couple friends each had one, and for some reason, being Canadian and being all egalitarian, I felt, well, if my friends have them, I should get something that they don't have, so they can be jealous. And I think I got the Rattler, so they would team up with their Sky Strikers to kick my butt out of the sky.
Nothing wrong with the Rattler. Kevin, thoughts on Ace?
Like I said, his most iconic moment is in that GI Joe comic for me.
I agree.
He was always showing support though in the cartoons. Is always good, and his name definitely fits him.
Yep. And David, thoughts on Ace?
Yeah, I mean, he's down the line. He seems like a pretty sort of basic. It's good that he starts out the order of battle, because I think he seems like I like his stuff about his gambling, his cutthroat poker. That there's a story there. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a story there for sure. But so he flew the Sky Striker. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, he came with the Fly Strike, the Fly Striker. He came with the Sky Striker toy.
That's pretty.
I want the Fly Striker toy now. What's that?
Imagine getting a classified. Imagine getting a classified Sky Striker. How big would that thing be? Jesus,
I don't see that happening, but
no, neither do I. But it'd be kind of fun if it did happen.
Oh yeah, no, it'd be nice. Yeah, they did the HasLab for the regular scale, the 4-inch.
Yes.
It came with Ace and a handful of other two figures. But
did any of you guys get that?
No.
I'm glad you asked. Yes, I.
Oh, very nice. I'm too poor.
Yeah,
my brother lives in hatred of me for the Sky Striker thing. But
no, I think it's cool.
You guys are still fighting over that, aren't you?
I will point out two fun facts, by the way. One from Kevin's comic book appearance where he goes up against Wild Weasel and they tie it up, which means Wild Weasel is the vastly superior pilot, because Ace is flying an F-14 Tomcat, which is made for air-to-air combat. Wild Weasel is flying an A-10, which is an air-to-ground vehicle. So Ace is I say defeated by Wild Weasel.
It wasn't Ace's best day, was it?
It wasn't. The other interesting thing about that is we just covered this on one of our shows, was that the timing. I think the Sky Striker came out in 83 and they pulled it from shelves in 85. Was its last year, I think, which is a dang shame, because what movie came out in 1996 that made the F-14 wildly popular was Top Gun. If they had left it on the shelf for another year, I bet it would have had a huge huge
Yeah.
sales resurgence.
Yeah, I would have thought it would have been a pretty big seller in general. The Sky
Well,
Striker.
Iron Eagle was out too. I mean, that came out like 4 months before Top Gun.
Hey, they missed their window on that one. But yeah, Dave, I think you're right. I think it sold pretty well. I mean, I had it, and a lot of my friends had it. It's one of the vehicles that it is the vehicle that I find most often at yard sales now. Like, if I'm going to find an old beat up Joe vehicle, it's usually just a shell, it's nothing great, but it's almost always the Sky Striker these days. So it was pretty prolific.
Cool.
I'm yard selling the wrong area, apparently. I never find crap. But anyway,
Who we got next?
So, anyone if you guys in the chat have any thoughts on these, feel free to throw them out and I can read them off also. Meanwhile, let's go move on to the next character. Kevin or Jarrod.
I forgot I had to do stuff. All right.
I'm sorry.
I got it if you want.
I got it covered. I got it
I
right
need
here.
you to read, and that was my mistake.
All right. So next up in the book is Airborne. Who do I always get him confused with, Aaron? The two that I can't ever.
Airborne and Ripcord.
Ripcord. Those are the two I always get mixed up. So this will be good for me. This will be very therapeutic.
Maybe.
Airborne is a helicopter assault trooper. His file name is Talltree Franklin E. Primary military specialty is, you guessed it, airborne infantryman. Secondary military specialty is helicopter gunship gunner. His birthplace is Navajo Reservation in Arizona. His grade is E5, which they nicely let you know makes him a sergeant. And his information reads as follows. Airborne's parents are oil-rich Navajos who indulged their eldest son with skydiving lessons, and Talltree also studied law and passed the Arizona State Bar exams. He joined the Army and opted for airborne training, commenting, "I'd rather jump out of airplanes than write legal briefs." Can't disagree there. Graduated top of his class from Airborne School at Fort Benning, which is where Airborne School is and was, by the way. He's qualified.
That's in Georgia. That's in Georgia, right?
Correct. It is in Georgia. It is since the base has been renamed. I can't remember the new name for it, but yeah, for years and years and years, it was Fort Benning, Georgia. He is a qualified expert on the Hughes helicopter chain gun, the M16, the M60, and the M11911 Alpha auto pistol. I said it weird just to bother Kevin. Airborne jokes around and gets loose, but he's serious too. He's dead serious. If you look at him and sometimes he's looking right through you, it must be the Indian in him. The Navajos call it the far-seen look. Spooky. So is Franklin Talltree. And just a quick thought from me, Aaron, since I got the mic. I think I always thought it was neat that, G.I. Joe is always good about, well representing the military and the diversity found within. So you have a diverse character here. He's the often overlooked Native American. We all think of Spirit Iron Knife.
Yeah.
And we don't think of Franklin Talltree, but he's pretty cool. And the one thing that I will add is his secondary.
Hold on, wait. Did you just say Spirit?
Yeah, what about? Oh, go ahead, do it. There we go.
I gotta
Sorry.
love
There he is.
You gotta take all
don't apologize, Kevin. Never apologize for your freedom cry.
The one thing I will add is the secondary military specialty of helicopter gunship gunner was one of the most dangerous, if not, it might be the most dangerous as far as unfortunate body count in the Vietnam War. Position to have. Door gunners it was a notoriously dangerous profession to be a door gunner. So
funnily enough, whenever I watch those movies, I'd always love to hop behind one. We
all want to be on the door gunner.
It's awesome.
But yeah, that was an extremely dangerous job.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And Brad, thoughts on Airborne?
Oh, well, as an action figure, he was one of my favorites back in the day. When I parted with most of my G.I. Joe collection, he was one of the figures that I hung on to. Just there was something about his look with his rifle and his fatigues and his backpack and helmet and everything. He just looked really, really cool. And I am anxiously awaiting my pre-order for the classified series version of him because he also looks pretty awesome. And while I'm not going all in 100% on classified, he was one of the figures that I said, well, if they do him on classified, I'm going to have to pick him up because he is a favorite of mine.
Very nice. And Kevin?
I agree with Brad. One of my favorite action figures when it came out, and one of the things that I did, is we probably all did when we were kids, is when we would watch the cartoons or read the comics, we'd be inspired by the stories that we would see there, and maybe either reenact or do something similar to the story. And I remember this one time I had all my Cobras holed up in this my own fort that I made for them out of boxes and styrofoam and escape chutes made out of paper tube towels and stuff like that, you know. And I remember that I had Airborne and Snake Eyes remember the little army men and their little parachutes?
Mm-hmm.
I would put those on them,
and
pretend that they were like first in, and they were like, you know, the secret sniper, you know, a commando group. And so I had Airborne and Snake Eyes going in behind behind enemy lines first, setting up and do that type of thing. And I remember that. I just love those figures. So that always inspired me to do that. And I remember that every time.
Very nice. And David, any thoughts on Airborne?
Love Airborne. While we're having this conversation, I made a pre-order purchase of the classified figure, which is how you determine if I really like a character. Airborne's cool. And I did not know that he was Native American. That's news to me when I read this, and I was like, yeah, with his brother Spirit, why not? Yeah,
there you go.
Bring it on. Yo, Joe.
And real quick, Wind Talkers, great movie. They talked about how in history they used the Navajo language to get around Japanese code breakers. And also Navajo, Star Wars, the original movie, they did release a Navajo spoken language version that you can actually still find on eBay. It's very hard to find. It's expensive, but there is a Navajo language version of Star Wars A New Hope.
That's interesting. I know with the most recent Predator thing, Prey, I don't know what branch of Native American the language was, but they did the same thing with Prey as well.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty cool, I think.
Yep.
And you can't get enough Native Americans. From what my understanding, there's a lot of Native Americans that join the military to get off the reservations and stuff. That's what I have been told. So I think it's good they're represented in G.I. Joe in the main squadron.
Yeah, and as Jarrod said, Larry was or Hasbro, whoever came up with the characters, was very good about giving representation. I mean, it's hard to tell looking at his figure or that he's Native American.
Yeah, I didn't know. That's news to me.
Yeah, cool, like Spirit, which is very much blatantly.
So, but Spirit's out and proud. Spirit's like, he's like 1,000%. Whereas, this guy, he's got the oil-rich parents. Unfortunately for Airborne, he doesn't come with a animal companion.
No, he does not. But I like Airborne. He wasn't one of my favorites, but again, he came out before I got into the toys, so I didn't get that. I don't think I ever got the action figure. So I haven't pre-ordered him yet, but he's one of the ones
that's got a pretty vital role. So I've got a question.
Yes.
When this was in the 80s, when these were the 3 3/4 inch, was he sold with a helicopter?
No, he came by himself.
No.
Okay. No. But you could put him in the helicopter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can put him. Yeah, you can put any of the Joes. So yeah,
he was the one I traditionally put into the back seat into the gunner seat of the Dragonfly. Although by a happy little coincidence, I happen to have in my hands here a file card for Airborne that was from the Canadian release, and there's a slight difference here. It says he was actually born in Caughnawaga, Quebec, and the quote about the far-seeing look. They reworded it to say the Mohawks call it the far-seeing look. The Canadian file cards were slightly different. They made them sort of a multinational team in a way, and that a lot of the Joes were given or assigned Canadian.
It also says he liked poutine as well, right?
He did.
He owns 3 Tim Hortons donuts.
Yeah. 3 donut chains. Yep.
I miss Tim Hortons.
That's clever of Hasbro to like slightly adjust it for a different market. Where you would have thought they might not have bothered, but they just did. They were like, we must sell as much as possible across this continent. Like we must.
Or now they've reduced.
I wonder if in Mexico they're all Mexicans.
And now they've just got the 5 language file cards, and they've removed all that extra information, which I'm not happy with. But that's another story entirely. So anyway, So that's Airborne. Again, we got a couple people who joined us in the chat or in the viewing us. If you guys have any thoughts on these, feel free to throw them in whatever chat you have access to, and I can read them on the air. You guys have any thoughts on these characters? For those who just joined us, we covered Ace, we just covered Airborne, and Brad. He gets to cover the next one.
We got a long way to go here. All right, this is going to be fun because this is one of my favorites. Code name Airtight, hostile environment. File name Kurt Schnurr. His primary military specialty is CBR, which is chemical, biological, and radiological warfare. His secondary military specialty, ordnance. His birthplace was New Haven, Connecticut. Lovely city. I've driven through it very fast. Kurt was the kid who could hold his breath the longest. He was also the kid who had the largest collection of plastic dinosaurs on the block. He was a weird kid who grew up to be an even stranger adult. It takes a mighty weird person to walk into a cloud of toxic gas strong enough to fell a mutant weightlifter, cockroach wearing a protective suit built under the contract for the government by the lowest bidder. And then there's a quote: Airtight is an unreformed practical joker. Sneezing powder, plastic barf, whoopee cushion, the whole bit. No prank is too low for him. You'd think the other Joes would hate his guts, but they don't. Because when the bad guys escalate the firefight and start playing dirty, it's old Airtight who suits up and wades into the thick of it. I mentioned off the top, he is another one of my favorite Joes of this period. The figure design was really interesting. It had a very sort of a sci-fi aesthetic, and it reminded me a lot of the astronaut uniforms from 2001: A Space Odyssey. They were a bit more colorful, and they had this almost insectile quality, which Airtight definitely has. And again, when he comes to Classified, I will be pre-ordering him too, because he is one of my favorites.
Me too, for sure.
Very nice. And Kevin, thoughts?
I always love to look at this figure. Shout out to my buddy, fellow finest G.I. Joe costume member in Georgia, Noel Wood, who did an Airtight costume that was fantastic. And is it just me, or with this picture, does he look like he's 4'2"?
Yeah, he does. This figure does make him look a little shorter than he is.
Well, it's said that prolonged exposure to toxic chemicals can stunt your growth, so he could have come by it naturally.
That's awesome.
And David, thoughts on Airtight?
Love him. And what a tough job this guy has. He's got to wade in when they bring out the chemical warfare. And they give him a rifle, they give him the suit and say, good luck. Get out there, kid. And Kevin, nice to hear you mention Noel, because I follow his show, the Audible Interlude show that he's on.
Oh, very cool. He's on a podcast? Nice.
Yeah, he's on Audible Interlude. Yeah, no, I listen to it all the time. And when he mentioned Finest, he always mentions that at the end of the show.
Nice.
That's
good guy.
The costume thing you guys have, yeah?
Yeah, and
he raised money for Canine for
yes,
Warriors.
And Noel, who I know well, and his wife Rebecca. Noel is the counterpart to my costume of the Incognito Cobra Commander. He is the Incognito Destro. If you've seen the picture, cool. That's Noel. Because as soon as he saw my Incognito Cobra Commander costume, he's like, "Dude, I got to do Destro. We got to go out together." I'm like, "Let's do it, man. Let's do it."
That's awesome. You guys have a lot of fun over there. That's great. Airtight's cool. Looking at this picture, this would be a must buy if I was. I just like. I like the way he goes out there when the going gets tough. They send out old Airtight.
Oh yeah. I like him in the comic. Yeah, he's very much out there and very much the one to go get the job done. As the toy, I think I had this toy, but he wasn't one of my favorites. So I won't be rushing to pre-order him on Hasbro, but I will eventually get it possibly if they come out with them. But I wasn't a huge Airtight fan. So Jarrod, we're gonna move on from me. Jarrod, thoughts on Airtight?
Yes, sir.
Besides that being your nickname in high school.
Yeah, that also. I wonder if when they release him classified, if his package will be completely sealed, or is there another word for that? Like you never mind. Anyways, I always thought Airtight was neat. I throw a lot of respect his way because I have had to don chemical warfare gear before. Once you're in it for about 7 minutes, you are just willing to risk breathing the chemicals. It is like hell being in that gear. Now, granted, he has a
It
much
can't be
nicer.
that bad. Come on.
It is awful. It is so bad. Like, I will breathe the chemicals. I vote to breathe chemicals.
Sounds
It is
terrible.
so bad. Well, I took my chem warfare training in North Carolina in the summer too, so it was particularly brutal. But I always liked him. What's kind of interesting is in this drawing, not only is he, played by Tom Cruise, but his quote unquote weapon, because it's not a weapon, by the way, is drawn to look much more like a rifle or a gun. But if you look at the figure and study it closely, you realize it's what's called a sniffer. It actually is something of a vacuum to suck up different chemicals and allows him to test them to see if the air is breathable and that kind of stuff. It's a sniffer and not an offensive weapon. So that's just a neat little, I bet all of us kids played with airtight like it was a gun, but it was not. It was not.
Hey, look, he's drawing.
Yeah.
Look,
Jared's
Jared's drawing
a gun that sprayed. Yeah.
Jared is drawing a picture of Scarlet in disguise.
Yeah.
I had to bring that up real quick and show. Part of the thing I love about the show is getting to see Jared do his
It
wonderful.
looks fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you.
Can I just make a quick comment? The second you're either in training or in real life having to wait out in like gas, dressed in one of these things, you're either a very big patriot or paid a lot of money, because that's some tough sledding. When they're like, "Good luck, kids. Get out there in the poison gas." Jesus.
So the next one, I think we're ready to move on. Did we get your thoughts on air? Yeah, we got your Brad. I'm sorry. Did we get your thoughts on airtight?
We did right off the top.
All right, my mind blanked out. Jared talked. My mind just
reset.
Alpine. Kevin, I believe it's your turn.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters here in the action figures. Code name Alpine, Mountain Trooper. File name Albert M. Pine. Primary military specialty, Mountain Trooper. Secondary military specialty, finance clerk. Birthplace, Mendocca, Idaho, grade E4. And his stats say, from the middle of the flat, dusty Snake River Plain where Alpine was born, he could see the mountains on the horizon in almost every direction, like a physical barrier between him and the world he wanted. He took up mountain climbing during college and continued as a recreational climber during his brief tenure as an accountant for a large publishing firm. The G.I. Joe team gave Alpine the most hazardous of all conditions, with Cobra shooting at him. Graduated Ranger School, Fort Benning qualified expert at the M16, M14, M60, and the M1911 Alpha 1. Quote, every time Alpine scales a sheer cliff face by sheer cliff face, is it Piton? Those little things that they do to, what's that?
Piton
by Piton. Overcoming granite and gravity with muscle and persistence, he is symbiotically climbing out of the quagmire of his past. That's why we send him up first on vertical assaults. He doesn't take to being knocked down too easily. That is Alpine.
And your thoughts on Alpine?
So my thoughts on Alpine?
Yes, sir.
I loved his little rope that he came with and the little axe and all that kind of stuff. Because one of the things that scared the crap out of me is rock climbing. I was like, nope. Whenever I saw Kirk do that in Star Trek V, the search for whatever it was, the Final Frontier. Yeah. And I saw guys, especially when they do the free climbing and all that kind of stuff, and they use those little platoons or whatever it is, the little spikes to climb up, that just scared the crap out of me. But I love the fact that that's what he did, and that's what he's always been good at. And it seemed like too, whenever you see people doing special stuff or going on adventures, they always throw that big coil of rope around their shoulder for something. They were ready to use it for something. So yeah.
And David, thoughts on Alpine?
Love him. I'm familiar with him through the Chuck Dixon comics. There's quite a bit of Alpine in one of the storylines where they're climbing up some mountains. He's just a cool character. And what an interesting thing when it says he is symbolically climbing out of the quagmire of his past, kind of alludes to a backstory there that we don't really know about. But for mine, a really cool Joe, and I view some of these guys as you kind of have they're the core group, if you know what I mean. And
Right.
I feel like Alpine, in my mind at least anyway, he's definitely one of the core guys. Love him. He's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I like Alpine. I like him in the comic and the cartoon. He's always paired with Bazooka. Yeah, in fact, I've got him I think I've got him pre-ordered. I'm going to pre-order when he comes out. They've announced Alpine's coming out in classified.
Good.
Alpine's one I'm going to have to get. And I guess I'm going to have to one to mention it. His real name is Alpine.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Alpine. Yep.
That is his real name, Alpine. But so I guess his code name came naturally. But yeah, no, Alpine's a great character. I say Larry did a great job with in the book. The cartoon always used him. He was one, especially in the first season. He was one that always showed up. I love Alpine. He's a great figure. Jarrod, thoughts on Alpine?
Today was the day that I found out his name was Alpine. And yeah, I definitely gravitated towards that it was previously mentioned that he's climbing to escape his past. I'm like, goodness gracious, Alpine. What is going on here, But yeah, I always liked him. I think it was Kevin saying, like, anybody who came with a rope, it's just cool. You can dangle them from stuff. And if you've ever seen the movie Boondock Saints, before they go off on their rampage, they bring a rope with them. He's like, Charlie Bronson always brought a rope.
Thank you for saying that, because I remember that specifically. Charles Bronson brought a rope.
If Charlie Bronson brought the rope, why wouldn't we? Right? So yeah, it's something very tactile and fun about playing with a toy that you can dangle from a rope. Like it's just, they ended up making an entire toy line of guys that did zip lines, and someone here will remember what it's called. Air Command, something like that. I can't remember, but they were
also the Crimson Twins had like rope stuff going on too in their figures.
Yeah.
They had something.
The small rope with the handle thing they could slide down. Yep. And Brad, thoughts on Mr. Alpine?
I think it's just funny that his name is Albert M. Pine. It made coming up with his code name a lot easier. He was a really nice looking figure. I remember that there was a real sense of detail with him, especially compared to the first couple of years of Joe's. I never owned him though, possibly because I have a paralyzing fear of heights. So even a toy that's all about climbing mountains, I would probably just stay well away from.
All right, that's Alpine.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about the rope, Kevin, I was thinking about the Boondock Saints and the one wanting the rope. What do you want the rope for? We need to have rope. Charlie Bronson had rope. If I here's your rope. That whole scene was just hilarious. I love that. I highly recommend Boondock Saints if anyone hasn't seen it yet. Great movie. Yep. But let's move on from Mr. Pine. David, would you care to do the next one?
Yep, Barbecue. He's a firefighter. His real name is Gabriel A. Kelly. His primary military specialty is fireman. Secondary military specialty is infantry. Birthplace, Boston, Massachusetts. Grade E4. If Kelly hadn't joined the G.I. Joe team, he would have been the 7th Kelly in his direct line in the Boston Fire Department. His love for the job is not based on family loyalty or an even more general sense of duty. He simply liked riding on the back of a truck with the wind in his face and sirens wailing, lights flashing and the bells clanging. Being allowed to knock down doors and smash windows with his axe is just frosting on the cake. Barbecue is what you call your basic party animal. He can open bottles with his teeth, pick up quarters with his ears, and wrap his lips completely around the bottom of a quart Coke bottle. You may well ask how all this affects his function as the G.I. Joe firefighter. It doesn't. It simply makes him a more interesting fellow to have around. Barbecue.
Wait, pick up quarters with your ears? I got to try that. I'll be right back.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, looking at this picture, he's an absolute legend. I'm not familiar with him, actually, other than I've heard his name. I think that there's a classified figure out. I'm pretty pretty confident. I don't have it, but yeah, he's cool. You guys probably have a lot more to say about him than me but it's a very good file card. I'll say that.
Yep, here's the Mad Marauders version of Barbecue. And somewhere I've got the regular white
Nice.
one up for me. So yeah, so there is a couple of figures out for him. So yeah, I like Barbecue. He's he showed up in the comic here and there. I'm here recently when they were doing the battle at sea. He was there chopping things up and trying to help put fires out. And there was he showed up a couple spotlighted episodes of the cartoon. So yeah, I had this figure. Yeah, I like Barbecue. He's a good character. Again, he's very, I like that he comes from a long line of firefighters. And like it says, if it wasn't for the fact he joined the Joes, he would have joined in the line of family. And again, I like that it's not so much for, loyalty to family or, whatever. He just likes riding on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
That was great. Jarrod, Barbecue? The figure. No, I'm not asking for.
Oh, yes, please. I'll take 2 plates.
No, come on over.
and how his real name isn't Barry BQ, I don't know. But here we are, right? But no, yeah, Barbecue made for an interesting figure because his figure design was so completely different from everybody else. And his bright orange, he comes with an axe, and so he really stands out. And just kind of a cool guy. I just remember that. Didn't they go like really, really heavy with the Boston thing on the cartoon, like the way.
Yes.
Oh my God! Yes. Oh God.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say his Lauren Lester, I think, did his voice for him. Oh my God, he really leaned into that big time. Oh,
he leaned into it, tripped over it, got back up again, leaned back into it.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts, man.
Brad.
I was going to mention the TV version, the accent, heavy on the blarney, Faith and Megora, Mother McCree. Really, he should sound more like Chief Brody in Jaws when he says they're in the yard, not too far from the cat. That's more of a Boston accent. So if you want to learn how to speak New Englander, watch Jaws.
There you go. And Kevin, thoughts on Barbecue?
I think that his axe is one of the coolest accessory weapons that any of these characters have had, and I love that axe. And one of the things I did with my GI Joes was I made like little tiny custom holsters for their guns, their sidearms, their weapons. And I remember my Snake Eyes borrowed. Snake Eyes had all the toys, and I remember he borrowed Barbecue's axe, and I had him like strapped to the back of it, and he brought it out, and he opened up a can of whoop ass. Just gonna say,
that's good.
Very nice. Yes, and from the chat we have. I'll try to look who it is because it doesn't show me on here, but Sean.
That's all funny.
Tufson says my classified Barbecue has become the lifeguard for my daughter's Barbies when she plays in the water. Add the MOS to his file card.
That's a good gig if you can get it.
That's right. I love it. That's good.
Yeah.
That made me laugh.
Good one. Thanks, Sean. And moving on to the next one. Bazooka. 1 second. Here we are. Military specialist. I'm sorry, military specialist. Try that in English. Missile specialist. File name David L. Katzbogen. Primary military specialty, armor defeating weapon system. Secondary military specialty, tank driver. Birthplace, Hibbing, Minnesota. Grade E5. Bazooka was driving an Alabama. Sorry, try this in English. Bazooka was driving an Abrams tank in the 3rd Horde, the 3rd Armored Division, when he came to the realization that an illiterate farmer armed with a $200 disposable rocket launcher could knock out a $1 million tank with less than 2 weeks training. He paid him for a transfer immediately. Training, Advanced Infantry School, Fort Benning, Armor School, Fort Knox, Qualified Expert, Dragon Anti-Tank Missile, Milan System, Law Rockets, Recoilless Rifle, Law System of Warsaw Pact, RPG Systems. Subject is also EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal Qualified, up to the tac nuke category. Subject is a decisive, fast thinker with all the instincts of a natural survivor. I like Bazooka. Again, I've got the figures I was just showing in the cartoon. In the cartoon, he was played. He wasn't played as a decisive, fast thinker with all the instincts of a natural survivor. He didn't. Yeah, he didn't play that in the cartoon. Larry, or not Larry. The guys in charge of the cartoon, I guess, didn't read his file card very well, and he's just a big dumb lunk. Oh, hi guys. So, but I liked him in the cartoon, but yeah, he's a very different character than in the comic and way this file card describes. Jarrod, thoughts on Bazooka?
Yeah, that was definitely a standout difference when you were reading it about how goofy he is in the cartoon, and he's not that way on his file card at all. I guess really the only thing I'll add is I remember the time that I attempted to wear a sports jersey in conjunction with my uniform, and it didn't go well for me. So,
Well, it's because you know G.I. Joe man.
I have thoughts.
but, other than that, no, he's a standout design. It's a little weird with the whole sports jersey thing, but you know, it's also what makes him unique.
There you go. Brad?
His file card is probably the funniest one. When you really think of it, it tells a little story about the realization that I'm not as safe as I'd like to think I am. It says a lot about just the military and conflict around the world, and that, you know, as we would know, threats could come from any direction, any size, any shape. So I think it must have been one of those things that somebody Larry knew told him or made mention of him, and it just kind of stuck.
Yeah, I can see that. Kevin, thoughts on Bazooka?
I love Bazooka. I remember having his action figure. I love the fact that he was, the guy that had the rocket launchers, and I've always liked those guys in movies, the ones that could, take out tanks and stuff. And I always thought he was kind of silly in the cartoons. I always thought that was kind of funny. But I come at Bazooka with a little different angle. Guys, I'm a Raiders fan. Okay.
Right.
And a lot of people I know do really good Bazooka cosplay for the finest. And I had thought about it once and only once, but that would force me to purchase a New England Patriots jersey. And to get a number 14, it had to be a Steve Grogan jersey, who was with the Patriots for like 15 years, starting in 1975. As much as I love Bazooka, I am nowhere in hell gonna wear a Patriots jersey, especially after the Tuck Rule game. So I'm gonna leave that to other people to cosplay Bazooka, but I am sure as hell not gonna do it.
And Dave, thoughts on Bazooka? Are you there, Dave?
Stay there. Cut out there for a sec, Dave. You still there with us?
Is it my turn?
Yep. Yes, sir. Thoughts on Bazooka?
Yes, sorry, but the connection. He is good.
You're cutting out, sir.
Cartoon. Oh, okay. I don't know what I don't really have anything open. Hold on. Give me.
Okay. Yeah,
go to someone else.
So, that's the last person. I'm the one that talked about it. So back to me. Bazooka. Yeah. As I said, I am a Bazooka fan. Like I say, the cartoon played him very differently than.
Can you see me?
Wild card. Yep. Yeah, we can see you. Just you keep cutting out as far as talking. Yeah, we can see you. Just keep cutting out, and we can't hear you.
No, can you guys hear me now or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Now you're cutting out again.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, good. All right. Right. Bazooka, love him. Chuck Dixon broke my heart when, spoilers, he killed him in the G.I. Joe comics. That was wrong with you, Chuck. Like, where has Bazooka hurt you? But he said it was a Hasbro commandment. Actually, it wasn't a Chuck Dixon decision. It was a Hasbro. The orders came from above. But yeah, he's a cool character. I have the classified figure. I think he looks cool with the jersey. I can totally understand why you don't want to purchase one, Kevin. It would be hard to purchase from an opposite team and wear it. Out and out proud, wearing it. I can see that. But he is in my
my extended Raider
top
family
10.
would kill me.
Yeah, no, I get that. But Bazooka is in my top 10. I like him, and I think he's got a cool design.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, and the classified figure, they first came out with the Tiger Force version, which has him in a white jersey and the striped pants. And I pre-ordered that originally because I need to have a Bazooka figure. And I heard they were coming out the regular, so I canceled that order because I'm like, Bazooka is not the
I've
one.
got the regular.
Yeah, I wouldn't think Bazooka's one that you want traipsing around in the jungle, sneaking up on
Yeah.
things. He's not a sneaky guy. He's
No.
blows crap up. But
and his regular costume is so classic that
Yes.
that's the one I would prefer. So that's what
Yeah.
I've got as well. The exact same.
yeah, I'd pre-ordered the one, and then I heard they were coming off the regular version. I'm like, you know what? The hell with this. Cancel this, and
Yeah.
I'll wait and get the regular version. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. I believe that would be Mr. Alberich, the artist drawer guy.
Well, isn't this fortuitous? It's my favorite G.I. Joe of them all. It's Beachhead.
Who?
Shut your mouth. Beachhead. He is a ranger. His name is Wayne R. Sneeden. His
Sweden.
Sweden. Reading's hard. Anyway, Wayne R. I can't say it for me, Kevin.
Sweden.
Thank you. For some reason, my mouth doesn't want to. Anyway, secondary military specialty, small arms, armor. And the most important part of all this is his birthplace, which is Auburn, Alabama, which, that's where I went to college. And, Kevin's love for Raiders equals Jared's love for the Auburn Tigers. It's like it's on one of those SAT questions, the analogy questions. Anyway, Wayne Sweden, I finally got it, is an E6, and Beachhead was that print is really small, lane instructor at Ranger School in Fort Benning and an observer advisor at the Covert Ops School in Central America. He's meticulous, patient, strong-willed. He likes getting up at 0500 to take a 10-mile run and PT session before breakfast. If he's running 10 miles, he gets up at 5. Breakfast is usually at 7. He's running anyway, he's fast. All right. He enjoys squatting motionless beside a jungle trail for 3 days straight, waiting to ambush bad guys that might never show up. What he hates is people who aren't interested in doing their best. Qualified expert in all NATO Warsaw Pact small arms. Most folks will get mad on occasion or at least get irritable, but not Beachhead. He thinks anger is a waste of time and energy. Rage clouds the vision and pollutes logic. Fury impairs judgment and makes you careless. The results of anger are totally unacceptable to Beachhead. He doesn't get angry. He gets even. And man, that is a line from his file card that I remember from my childhood. Doesn't get angry. He gets even. I always liked that. And Beachhead wasn't always my favorite Joe. I grew up, brace yourselves, a Snake Eyes fan. What a shocker. Right. But after I went to college and I realized that Beachhead was from the same college that I went to, he rapidly became my favorite, and I've loved Beachhead ever since. And you know what? I already really liked him, not only for the file card, but his figure design is incredibly kind of awesomely 80s, with it's much like Snake Eyes with the hidden face and all that stuff. So anyway, I'll shut up because I could go for a while on Beachhead. I'll let it just flow down to, I guess, Brad.
Yeah, and like Beachhead, I don't get angry. I get even as well. He's cool. Beachhead's cool. I'm not going to say anything bad about Beachhead, and not just because Jared's here, but because Beachhead was a cool character. Yeah, he was a very cool figure. I remember when he was one of the last figures I think I actually got, because I was sort of tapping out on G.I. Joe by 86, but I think him in Wetsuit and Hawk. I wanted to get those three, and I wanted to get the Devilfish toy. To recreate the scenes from issue 46 or 47 of them outside Cobra Islands. I thought that was really cool, and I did, and that was probably my last hurrah with G.I. Joe. So I have a great fondness for Beachhead. As far as collecting, I hung out with the comic for a few years after that, but the toys, this was my last one. But yeah, Beachhead. We need more Beachhead.
Kevin.
Beachhead, great action figure. I picked him up. I remember that, and I always thought he looked cool. And of course, he has a shining moment in the original G.I. Joe 87 cartoon movie. But when he says that what he hates is people who aren't interested in doing their best, I kind of feel like he's taking a personal shot at Chuckles. You know, when Chuckles wanted to improvise and throw a missile at a Cobra tank, you know. So I don't know. I'm just saying. But I love Beachhead. And one of my good friends, Mike, who is in the G.I. Joe Finest group, there is several people who do a Beachhead costume. And he's actually in charge of the recruitment. And so if you're going to do a Beachhead costume, you better choose the one that you're going to do your costume at and make sure you get it right, because he is the first person that's going to see it and judge you.
Hey, alert here. I've now discovered why I was so tongue-tied on it. On his file card, it's Sneeden. It's only Sweden in this comic.
Interesting.
Right.
That's why I kept flipping over. I was like, I kept saying Sneeden, and then I'm looking at it, and it says Sweden, but on his file card, it's Sneeden.
I was thinking Sneeden too. So but
yeah,
Wayne Sweden sounds cooler.
I think you're right. I think it does. I think it does sound cooler. But as you guys all know, but maybe some listeners, well, probably all our listeners do. You know, a lot of these guys got named after people that worked at Hasbro, so that's probably a real Hasbro employee name of Wayne Sneeden, much like Albert Pine. I'm certain also.
Albert Pine.
But that was bugging me. I was like, how can I be wrong about my favorite? How can I not say my favorite Joe's name? And then I was like, why am I so confused? So I've been researching the background. I'm sorry. I totally interrupted Kevin. The mic is yours, sir.
Oh, no, I was done. That was good. That was great. Go ahead.
Great timing. And Dave, thoughts on Sweden, Sneeden, whatever his name is?
Well, I hate to be the one that breaks up the party, but coming in later and really seeing a lot of Beachhead in the comics, especially that IDW run, I wasn't as hot on him. And the reason for that is nothing to do with his character. It's the look with the mask on. It's not one I'd buy. That said, he is a cool character, and I do like his file card. And I think if I'd read the file card back in the day, I would have been into it. But for me, as going just purely on design, nothing to do with personality or anything, it's a bit basic. So it's not a buy for me. But I do like his file card where he doesn't get angry, he gets even. That actually makes Beachhead seem a bit cooler to me, and maybe I'll take a second look. But yeah, you know, not everyone can ever be everybody's favorite. So my apologies to the Beachhead fans. You know,
it's quite all right. He did it in a very respectful way, I gotta say.
And I'm right in between the two groups. I like Beachhead, but he's not one of my favorites. Again, the cartoon, I don't know if they read his file card, because again, the cartoon to me, he always seemed angry. He always seemed irritated everybody else. So I don't know how much I read of his file card, but yeah, he was an interesting character. But yeah, he never really was one of my favorites. I like him, but yeah, he's not up there. And we'll go and move on to the next one. Let's see if there's any other thoughts on this. And I'll tell you what, go ahead and talk about this. If you guys I'm going to run the rest real quick while you guys talk. So
do you want to go on to the next one? Am I next? Who's next?
I'm next.
Brad's next. So Brad.
Go ahead, Brad.
If I'm not back, Jared, go ahead and talk just go in order. Right back.
Oh my God, he left me in charge, everyone.
All right. Codename Blowtorch, Flamethrower, file name Hanrahan, Timothy P. Primary military specialty, infantry special weapons. Secondary military specialty, small arms armorer. Birthplace, Tampa, Florida. So he knows something about the heat. Blowtorch is thoroughly familiar with all military incendiary devices and flame projection equipment. To Blowtorch, the use of fire in warfare is a science that predates the bow and arrow. Qualified expert, M7 flamethrower, M16, M1911A1 auto pistol. Blowtorch can't sleep unless he's near a smoke detector. Cigarette smoke drives him bananas. He always sits near the exit in a movie theater and refuses to live anywhere where he can't safely jump out the windows. This is not irrational to him. These are actions based on intimate knowledge. Another action figure that was one of my favorites, and a character that I quite enjoyed for his brief appearances in the comic book. And I know in issue 33, he complains pointedly about he wishes they wouldn't let people smoke cigarettes in malls. So he's probably happy right now that all the indoor smoking bans are in effect, but he's probably a little unhappy that malls really aren't a thing anymore. But like him, cigarette smoke drives me bananas too. So I salute Blowtorch for his commitment to the bit.
Well done, sir. And now it is Kevin's go. What do you got on Blowtorch, buddy?
I loved Blowtorch. I got the figure. I just remember that the little hoses didn't always stick into like his chest or the mouth or
That's
whatever.
right.
That it was.
Frustrating.
Yes. And I guess there was the one from his Blowtorch himself that would go to the tube to the back. If I remember correctly, like the backpack or something. He looks so freaking cool. And I want to give a shout out to my fellow finest member from the Central Defense Garrison, William A. Did a fantastic Blowtorch costume, spot on. And he got the color down right. And just one of those action figures that pops. And I always liked seeing him in the cartoons. Though I don't remember him getting much action in the comics. I'm completely forgetting. So if you remember some good scenes, feel free to say so. But I love this guy.
It's funny because of you, I always think about G.I. Joe Finest now, and especially coming right after Beachhead. Beachhead seems like it'd be relatively easy costume put together. A lot of it's just readily available. The guy who makes Blowtorch is a committed member of
yes, it's not that easy. Trust me.
That's impressive. Speaking of impressive, Dave, what do you think?
Love him, actually. I think this is not super familiar with him. I'm sure I've seen him, but reading this file card and the design of the character, absolutely beautiful. And he comes with a flamethrower. Yeah, I actually think I made a note that the second Blowtorch comes out as a classified, I'm getting it. I hope they go for this design. I think it's brilliant. I was doing a bit of research on him last night because I was so impressed. And apparently he's had very few appearances in comics and TV because I don't think they wanted the kids just seeing Blowtorch incinerate people with his flamethrower.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but no, he's. I think that design with the red and yellow really pops. Super big fan.
Yeah, that's interesting that you would bring that up, by the way, because you are correct. There's a big concern. I mean, at least I can speak for America. A big concern in America about fire on TV. This is why the Fantastic Four cartoon had Herbie instead of the Human Torch, because they didn't want kids setting themselves on fire with the Human Torch. And that's the whole problem with Beavis. For those of us who are old enough to remember Beavis and Butthead.
He was like a pyromaniac, wasn't he?
Yeah, he wanted to set things on fire, which made me often wonder, like, that's like a storytelling missed opportunity. I really think that Blowtorch and Barbecue should like really either go at it a lot or be best friends. Like one of the two.
I'm surprised at some point in the comics they haven't done that because that battle just writes itself.
It does. It really does. And my only final thoughts, and then I'll pass it back to Aaron now that he's back, is the one thing that really bugged me is I had this guy and I lost the flamethrower, but it was like, oh sweet, it's included in one of the battle packs, a little accessory pack.
Right.
But the one in the accessory pack was like bright, like green, it's like green.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Why would it not be yellow? Or orange or red or anything. Why green? To this day, I think I still own the green flamethrower and it bothers me.
Hands up, who amongst you guys owned the figure back in the 80s of this Blowtorch?
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
I still have him somewhere.
Yeah, and I would have too. He's one that my eye would have been drawn to. It still is. So I think he's extremely toyetic, as they say.
Yeah, that's a good point. Aaron, your show again, sir.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad the show's still here. I'm glad it didn't go off the rail. Well, never mind. Blowtorch. Yeah, I like Blowtorch. Yeah, like we just talked about, I had the figure. A great character. Great. Yeah, he showed up in the comics here and there. He showed up in the cartoon. Yeah, not much to say about Blowtorch. I mean, he had his purpose. I do like that. I mean, he is the Blowtorch. He walks around shooting fire everywhere. But yet his file card very much, he can't sleep unless he's near a smoke detector. Cigarette smoke drives him crazy. Because again, he knows the dangers of fire. He knows how to use fire. And so he respects fire. And that's why he's able to use it.
fire.
Yeah.
So moving on. Everyone got the thoughts in about Blowtorch and Beavis or Butthead, whichever it was.
I'm starting to think that we're going to get through one issue. We're at an hour and 15, and we're on like the sixth guy.
Yeah, I'm thinking you may be right, but we'll see. Brad, would you like to take the next one?
I just did Blowtorch,
Oh,
but
we
I can do
just-
Breaker too. I can do
Kevin.
Breaker too. No, damn.
Sorry, Kevin.
All right, I'll do Breaker here.
Breaker 2 Electric Boogaloo, by the way.
All right. All right. Rest in peace, Breaker, damn Saw Viper. All right. Breaker, Communications Officer, file name Alvin R. Kibbe. Primary military specialty, infantry, birthplace, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Grade E4. Breaker is familiar with all NATO and Warsaw Pact communication gear, as well as the most world export devices, specialized education, signal school, covert electronics, Project Gamma, qualified expert, M16, M1911A1, Mac 10 Ingram, woohoo, classified, speaks 7 languages. Quote, he's as efficient and self-assured and has an uncanny ability to turn adverse situations to his flavor. And speaking of flavor, Bubblicious is his favorite bubble gum. That is not in the file card. I just know that for sure. Breaker, I loved Breaker. I love the fact that he is the communication officer's guy. He's also, honestly, when you watch the cartoons, there he is. Breaker came with the Ram, which should not have happened.
Yeah,
We all know that rock and roll should have came with Ram. But anyway,
Correct.
what I like about Breaker, he's kind of like Donatello. He's the nerd of the group. You know, he's the communications guy, the computer guy. And I love the fact he was always chewing bubblegum. That was just a neat thing. I love that. And I want to give a special shout out to my good friend Chuck Pierce of the Georgia Finest Garrison, which is what brought me into the Finest for the first time. And he did a fantastic Breaker costume. So well indeed that he took special interest in putting in the backpack. He made it really work with like radio. You could turn on any radio station. And all of that. He put USB in there so you could charge your phone on Breaker's backpack. He had a speaker in there with a Bluetooth. It was fantastic. So shout out to Chuck. I was bummed that he was one of the people that went down when they started calling GI Joes. But you know what? He will live in my heart. I love Breaker.
Dave.
Yeah, that's interesting, and that's so cool to hear that with the Finest. They go to that level of detail. I mean, you guys are just throwing money just at this, like it's amazing. Yeah, Breaker to me, very basic. Maybe I don't think I have the nostalgia wave for Breaker, but I do like that he's kind of like the Donatello, as you said, and I mean he gets a plus for that. It's not a figure I would personally buy, but that's only because to me he's a little bland. I'm into some more of the crazy, characters. It's a pass from me, but he's a cool character.
Okay.
Someone's got to man the radio. Yeah,
How do I disconnect Dave from the chat? Oh.
No,
No, I like him. He's one of the originals. He was one of the classic Joes. Like what I was just showing. I've got him and the Ram, even though it shouldn't have been him, but that's another story entirely, as Kevin mentioned. No, I like Breaker. Eventually, he was kind of replaced with crap.
Dalton.
Thank you, Dalton. Thank you. Yes, he was replaced by Dial Tone eventually, and as we'll find out in a few years or whenever we get to it in the book, yeah, he doesn't end well. But yeah, I like Breaker. He's a great Joe. I love him. Not my top 10, but yeah, he's probably in the top 20, I'd guess maybe. Jared, you got thoughts on?
I'll just add that he's definitely one of my favorites. I joked earlier about how Ace and I were similar in being Air Force and captains, but I probably most similarly in my military career to Breaker. I was a comms officer in the Air Force. I did comms. I never got the cool backpack, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, he's an OG line Joe, and I have a special place in my heart for comms. So yeah, love Breaker.
And Brad.
Breaker may have been the first G.I. Joe figure I ever got. I got 3 in 1982 when they started advertising them on TV. And of course, I whined and complained to my mom until she took me to the toy store or to the mall when she was doing her errands and left me in the toy section. And I whined and complained and pled until she threw up her hands and said, "Okay, fine, you can have a few action figures because it'll shut you up." And so it was definitely Breaker and Snake Eyes and Grunt. These are the straight arm versions. These are the pre-swivel arm battle grip ones. And I thought Breaker actually kind of looked like the coolest of all of them because he had that funky headset and backpack, but he didn't come with a gun. So I took Grunt's M16 and I popped it into Breaker's hand, and the thumb snapped off. And that was
That
was
is
par
the
for
way.
course for the day. And that is all I have to say about Breaker.
Quickly moving on. This would go down to David.
Yeah, okay. I'm so glad I got a cover girl. Wolverine driver, file name Courtney A. Krieger, primary military specialty armor, secondary military specialty AFV mechanics, birthplace Peoria, Illinois, grade E. Sorry for my apologies for not knowing the pronunciation. Grade E4 specialist. Cover girl was a high fashion model in Chicago and New York prior to enlistment. Grew disillusioned with modeling and enlisted to put new direction in her life. Attended armor school at Fort Knox and related tech schools. Proficient in diesel mechanics, gas turbine technology, qualified expert, law rocket, Dragon AT missile, M16 and M1911A auto pistol. Cover girl finds she must work against her beauty to prove herself. She's compelled to learn and master decidedly unfeminine disciplines. Her self-assurance and stunning good looks reduce most men to stuttering fools. I think she's a classic. Got to give it to Cover Girl. I'm super happy that I got it to read out. I ordered the classified figure. She goes up there with with Scarlet and some of the others, and she's an absolute gem. Love her. She's in my top 10 for sure.
Very nice. Yeah, I like Cover Girl. She came with the Wolverine originally, and she came with the Wolverine vehicle. I've got the old school Wolverine, but I don't have the cover. I need to find Cover Girl still for the Wolverine vehicle. But she didn't seem to get as much play as Scarlet and Lady J did in either the comic or the cartoon. I mean, she'd show up occasionally. I think they did her dirty in the G.I. Joe movies of more recent. But where I can talk about that. But yeah, I like Cover Girl. She a beautiful character, and yeah, like I say, she's a model, but she's also striving to prove herself as a soldier and just as worthy as anyone else. So
I would say Chuck uses her well in his run. Actually,
Okay.
Cover Girl's got some good moments in his run.
Very good. And Jarrod, thoughts on Cover Girl?
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I did the Wolverine as a mail away when I was a kid, and so it was very special to me to get, it came in the mail, like mailed away. Like that was really
That's
cool.
awesome.
And so it has a special place in my heart. And as was mentioned over on Jim Meals' G.I. Joe Chronicles Outpost podcast, I think she's even though she's less, sung than, let's say, Scarlet or Lady J, I think she was a really good move as far as barrier breaking, as far as quote unquote girl toys and boys playing with girl toys, because I think they very cleverly packaged her with a vehicle that every boy is going to want. You're going to want that tank looking thing that had like 12 missiles on it. Like it was so cool. It was called the Wolverine, and everything Wolverine in the 80s was cool, be it Marvel Comics or that Red Dawn. Anything Wolverine was cool. So I think it was just a really smart synergy on or maybe it was just luck, but to package a quote, a girl figure with such a cool vehicle, I think nobody I knew thought of her or pretty much any of the other Joes strongly as girl figures. Like I think Joe was smart at marketing, and because I think we just wanted Scarlet, we wanted Lady, we wanted those Joes. And I think she is a real good example of that, especially by packaging her with such a, quote unquote, manly vehicle,
Well, and also I would say they've militarized her look so that it's not like she comes like Barbie with like, like X-Men costumes that are sort of more civilian. The fact that they've paired it with the heavy military angle, I think helps the sell.
And
to
what a
the-
design too. Look at the drawing we have right up here on the screen by Herb Trimpe. She's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't overpower the military part. Like it's a really
Exactly.
good balance, which I think
That's actually why I really like her. I think she's a really good example of they executed it almost perfectly, I think.
Yeah. Well, and that was the big thing that, boys don't play with girls with girl figures. And I wonder how true that actually was, or if it's just misguided marketing thought. Because I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to have Scarlet and CoverGirl and Lady J, and like in the Visionaries, there was like 1 or 2 girl figures I wanted to have, and I didn't mind.
Princess Leia really helped break the mold,
Yes.
no pun intended. Like we all wanted to have a Princess Leia.
That's
But
true.
I wonder how much of that is actually true that boys didn't want to play with girl figures, or if it was just misguided marketing, not knowing what the hell they're doing.
That's a good question.
But I guess
I think it was I think that what it is they heavily, but the toy companies heavily marketed along those lines. So to a certain extent, it's true, but it was also heavily indoctrinated baked
Right.
into the whole marketing of everything. But there are plenty of examples that you mentioned, Princess Leia. Plenty of examples where that was broken. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, in the 80s, yes, the toy companies in Hasbro, Mattel and all that heavily believed it and heavily, so yeah, in essence, it's true in that that's what they did. But there were plenty of examples of breaking that barrier. This is probably a smaller example, but it is an example nonetheless.
Yep. And Brad, thoughts on CoverGirl?
Well, thoughts on CoverGirl. I have to say, really, the thing that pops in my mind is a question, which I have to pose to Kevin, because I know he's waiting for to answer it. CoverGirl, hot?
Hot. I'm sorry. I'm reduced to a stuttering fool right now.
Do you have any other thoughts, Brad, real quick before we move on to just want to find out she's.
I just wanted to hear what Kevin's thoughts on her were.
We know, Kevin.
I got a few more.
What's your thoughts on CoverGirl, Kevin? Besides,
I just want to mirror what Brad said about the cool vehicle that she had, the Wolverine. How cool is that thing? I love that. And
yes.
I remember that was one of the coolest things ever. And I was a fan, of course, of having the female Joes out there, because the cartoon and the book did such a great job of representing them and showing them as badasses,
Yep.
and just being a GI Joe fighting peer, not just a lady in a man's world. It was nice to see them have their own identities as well. And again, I just want to give a shout out to the Finest Group, because we've had several wonderful ladies in the Finest Group that do fantastic CoverGirl outfits. And what's cool about it is that she's not sexualized. She just looks freaking cool with her the coat that she has and all those other different variants that some of the Finest members use to portray her. And I like that she used to be a model. She's like, no, I ain't having that. I want to serve my country. I want to kick ass with my fellow Joes, and I've just always liked that about her.
I do think there'd be a good backstory of when she's finishing modeling and maybe getting enlisted by the Joes. I would like to see an issue of that.
My one pet peeve is the original G.I. Joe movie that she got taken out way too soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of trying to ignore that because that's what she was done dirty. She was did dirty in there, which I was not happy with. But anyways, yeah. Moving on from CoverGirl. So real quick, yeah, looks like I planned on probably doing 2 issues. Looks like we're only going to get through the 1 issue today, but that's all right. We got some good talk out of this.
This is fun.
You may only have me for another 30 minutes or so, because I can smell dinner cooking in the background.
Okay. Next up, we have Crankcase, Rampage Driver. His file name was Indiana, Elwood G. Primary military specialty, motor vehicle driver. Secondary military specialty, armor. Birthplace, Lawrence, Kansas. Grade, E4. There are several ways to get from one place to another in Kansas, and driving fast is most of them. Crankcase was racing street machines when he was 16, which was no great feat since he had been building them since he was 13. He worked the stock car circuit for years until the boredom hit him like a solid brick retaining wall, and a recruiting sergeant with a crooked smile and a gib line of banner signed him up for the burst of 4 with promises of speed and glory. Crankcase graduated Ranger School and Desert Warfare School and attended the Special Air Service Tactical Driving School under the NATO Exchange Program. Qualified expert in M16, M1911A1, M60, and TOW. Ever get irritable when you're standing in a line that just doesn't seem to be moving at all? Well, the whole world seems to be moving in slow motion to Crankcase all the time. That's why he's constantly ticked off. He's just not happy unless he has a wheel in one hand, a shifter in the other, and the wind in his face. So that's Crankcase. As far as me, I don't. I'm sure I had the figure, but yeah, he's not one that stands out to me for whatever reason it is. It's interesting that I like his file card. It sounds like a very cool character, but yeah, for some reason, he just doesn't stand out to me. I don't remember much about him. Jarrod, you have thoughts on Crankcase?
Kind of the curse of the generic vehicle driver, I feel like, hits Crankcase a bit. No slight if there's big Crankcase fans out there, that's cool. But I just don't think he ever had the pop of a cover girl or more so a clutch. And that's probably because he didn't get much time and development in the comics, as far as I remember. So yeah, Crankcase he's fine with me, and I think he's cool. But to me, he'll always be the driver of the Ostriker.
Yes. Yep. Brad.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Jarrod on this one. He kind of comes in second to Clutch as sort of the iconic Joes. I guess because for the toy line, he was sort of brought in to drive the vehicle that was supposed to be the replacement for the Vamp. As they kind of aged the toys out and pulled them off the shelves after a couple of years.
Right.
He's got a very interesting detailed file card. And one of the things I'm noticing about all these is if you look at a lot of the earlier Joes, like Breaker, for example, they just get a very basic little write-up. And it feels like in subsequent releases, they had a little bit more latitude to beef up the character. And it's kind of funny that they put all this background into Crankcase's I guess backstory, because none of this really ever showed up in the comic or in the toy that I can recall. Again, he kind of sits in the middle of Joes that I'm aware of, but I really don't have any real connection to.
Yeah. Kevin, are you a Crankcase fan?
A quick question though. It mentions that he's the Rampage driver, but he came with the Ostriker. Am I missing something?
I don't know. Maybe that was the original name for the Ostriker, or
yeah, look for that as a repeating theme, because I'm about to read you Cross Country, and it's the vehicle name is not going to match once again.
Yeah. So
last night, I because I wasn't familiar with the vehicle, I Googled it, and Rampage, when you type it in, often comes up with just Crankcase. So it's almost like they mix the name of Crankcase up with Rampage. He's often listed as Rampage, and it is Crankcase.
So he was kind of forgettable for me, to be honest with you. I remember the Ostriker, but his character, the toy at the time, was kind of nondescript, and I don't remember him getting much play in the cartoons or the comics. So if you didn't get play there, you're kind of in the ether for me. And there's been a few times, and I'm not going to say who, but where I would be with my fellow Finest members, and they would be in a costume, and I wouldn't know who it is. And so I would have to kind of like go about a clandestine way and overhear conversations to figure out which character they were. And if my buddy Keith, who did a Crankcase costume, hears this, I apologize, dude. I didn't know what you were until later. So yeah, there you go.
I have to add something, and this just occurred to me as we're talking about Crankcase, and we're mentioning that he was kind of secondary to Clutch, and I have just discovered something surprising for a near 40-year-old comic book. Is this order of battle is incomplete, because there should have been a page for Clutch.
Exactly, I was going to say that. Clutch has been done dirty here,
and so I think as Steeler, I think. I'm kind of skipping ahead here. Is
Yeah.
this true? Have I unearthed something? So it's not complete. So I think they
Yeah.
got to do. I think they got to do another run of these.
There you
They
go.
got bloody Rocky Balboa in, but they forgot Clutch. Good work.
Yeah.
Good work, bro.
And Grand Slam, the Forgotten Joe. He's not in this either.
Huh.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
Steeler is. They do Steeler in the next issue, so they didn't forget everybody.
Yeah,
must be one of
he's
those.
there.
Oops.
If they're phasing some of them out,
Yeah.
or why they skipped some of them. That's interesting.
I place blame squarely on the shoulders of editors Howard Mackey and Jack Morelli for not catching it.
Jack Morelli.
And
again,
I'm going to save a little bit of shaky fist for Tom DeFalco
Hey,
and Jim.
Howard
Shea.
Mackey. Well, Howard Mackey's around, man. Maybe if you really want to piss him off, you could just challenge him on that.
I will go
topic and
if
see
he
his
appears at a
reaction,
comic
like,
book show in the
really?
area. I will go up to him in my best comic book guy voice and say, "In issue 1,
We
of the
we
G.I.
might
Joe
have to
Order
we
of
might have to
Battle, you forgot."
we might have to speed this up, guys. We got a lot
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
through for this first
Yeah.
issue here.
And I was looking on Yo Joe, and apparently Rampage is a character from 1989, a figure. So I don't know where that came from. Anyways, so where do we leave off on Crankcase? Anyone need to talk about him still?
Other than to say, he's a
Anyway.
generic-looking character, but his backstory is very cool. And I did write down his crankcase is cool, but I mean, it's a decent figure. If I had the vehicle, I would have probably loved him. If he came with a vehicle, that would have been cool. I'm not sure I would have bought him by himself.
Yeah. Let's move on. So the next one, where do we leave off at? I'm sorry.
Cross country.
Right.
I
Cross
think
country.
Who's reading?
me. I think
Is it
it's
you?
me.
There you go.
Yeah, and you know what, Aaron, if you feel like it, there's 32 Joes in here, and if you want to hit 16 and say, okay, do them in
Yes,
halves, we'll do them in half.
Yeah, that's probably do this. Yeah, I thought we was gonna get more in, but yeah, it's taking a little longer than I thought. So yeah, well probably do half the issue.
But it's been good discussion though. I've
It
loved
has.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
5 nerds who are like,
Yeah.
I got jokes and jokes and jokes,
Yeah. So let's go. Yeah, well, so
Anyway,
I'll
just
do
a
some-
thought. I don't want just an alternative to having to rush would be to just
yeah,
say,
no,
okay, we're gonna
definitely.
have to-
I would rather take my time and do it right and take longer to
Yeah.
cover it than
Yeah.
rush through it. And I'm enjoying the conversation. So
Well,
Well, plus
your
we never
mileage may
really
vary,
we,
but-
we never really get a chance to talk about each individual
yeah,
show just on their own. So
and we want to give them their due, so definitely.
yes. So
well, I guess I'll start with cross country
yes,
then.
this is
Yeah.
Jared's turn. I mean, Jared.
Yes, it's cross country, who they erroneously call a rhino driver,
Yeah.
when in fact it was the
Havoc.
Havoc. Thank you. My brain stopped for a second. I gotta think they did some last minute vehicle renaming, and that's why we've got this going on. But anyway, his file name is Slaughter Arlen W. I wonder if he's related to Sergeant Slaughter.
Wonder.
That's a good
His
point.
primary military specialty is armor. His secondary military specialty is heavy equipment operator. All this makes sense. His birthplace is Greensboro, North Carolina. His grade is E5. Cross Country's father was a bulldozer operator, and his mother drove a grader. You might say he was born to drive big yellow things that run on diesel. Coupled with his natural affinity for heavy machinery, his uncanny sense of direction and fearlessness under fire make him the man you want at the controls, whether you're riding into a hairy situation or trying to get out of one. Qualified expert with heavy laser cannon, M16A2, M550 cal machine gun, and a 45 auto pistol. Crankcase might be a wild man behind the wheel of his Awestriker. They got it right there, didn't they? But Cross Country will steer that Havoc, got it right there,
I don't know.
of his across terrain that would break both axles of the RTV. Of course, a tracked vehicle has natural advantages, but it is Cross Country's talent for sensing the most favorable grade, the slowest mud, and the firmest sand that makes all the difference. So, again, I think a lot like Crankcase, you have a really well-written card there for a guy who's curse of the vehicle driver. I've never really thought much about cross country. I mean, we can square up and look straight into eye. Probably the most controversial thing is he wears a rebel flag belt buckle, which in the 80s was kind of, I think it's important for your listening audience to know, maybe especially if they're younger. If you're not from the 80s, like that kind of a belt buckle or very Dukes of Hazzard on the car.
Yeah,
really
Dukes
just
of Hazzard.
Yeah, it really just indicated he's a Southern boy. I don't think there's any. This is just Jared's opinion. I don't think there's any hate behind it or anything like that. Just the feel of that and what it means has changed over the years. So I think it's properly put in the 80s. I can't speak for everybody's opinion, but from my opinion, I don't find it terribly offensive. But then again, I was there in the 80s, and I think it was just different. I don't mean to get all controversial on your show, but let's be honest, it's the only interesting thing.
Hey, man, you're not going to get any complaints from me. I love Dukes of Hazzard.
Now, who doesn't love the Dukes of Hazzard? It's in the theme song. They're good old boys, and they don't mean any harm.
Man. Yeah, General Lee. Remember, I always play that song on my show. The General Lee. What's his name? Cross Country. I think he's a great design, and the belt buckle. It's a controversy magnet now, but I bet you in the 80s it was absolutely fine. So there you go.
And Brad.
Just to clarify, grade E5, that's a sergeant, right?
Correct.
So he is Sergeant Slaughter. He's an
you got
E5.
It. You are correct.
And his last name is Slaughter.
He's
so
the
he
original
is
Sergeant Slaughter.
There you go.
That's a good point.
There you go. The only thing I would add is that he's from Greensboro, North Carolina, and I lived in Greensboro at the time, and I did not like living in Greensboro. So right away, cross country is my least favorite Joe.
Oh, no.
That's all I got to say.
Poor cross country.
Kevin, do you have any love for cross country?
Shout out to my friend Noel Woodigan, who did a cross country costume, and I wasn't sure who he was because I never had the Havoc. And I'll be honest with you, I remember I had a chance at the Havoc, but I just don't understand how the hell you drive that damn thing lying down on your chest. Makes no sense. I do remember the flag buckle. It never bothered me. It was an 80s thing, and it means different now, and I understand that. But now I'm done. And by the way, just real quick, if you want to know that the halfway point in this comic is when we get to dial tone.
Very
cool.
You will hear a dial tone when we get.
Dave, thoughts on cross country?
Well, yeah, I'm more familiar with him just because he's been mentioned. I do like his design though. And the Havoc is a weird vehicle. It's a cool vehicle. As a kid, it would have been a vehicle I would have begged my mother to buy for me because it's just so. But I agree with what you just said. It's got a weird design for the driving. I guess that was just a way of getting the figure to fit in there with how they designed it. Would he have come with the Havoc? Is that yes. How it worked back then?
Yeah, he came with the Havoc.
Yeah, then I definitely would have had him, and I would have loved him. For sure. And shout out to Dukes of Hazzard because one of the greatest shows of the 80s. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
No, I was just gonna say I love Dukes of Hazzard. I watched the reunion movies a while ago, and they're just good stuff.
Yeah, I love the Dukes of Hazzard growing up. Me and my brother loved. We wanted to be Bo and Luke Duke, and
yeah, Daisy. Remember Daisy?
Oh, Daisy.
I have some memories of Daisy.
What teenage boy from the 80s does not remember Daisy?
We had the card game and we played it all the time. And we would do all the voices. Rascal Pico Train.
Very nice. And I'm going to be the different one here, I guess. I remember cross country. Like I say, I bought issue 51 where it first cross country and the Havoc first showed up prominently. That was one of the first issues I picked up in that package I mentioned before. He had I remember him because he was very characteristic Southernly. I mean, in the cartoon, in the comic, and he was issue 51 when the Dreadnoks were making their escape, and they call him a redneck. He's like, or hillbilly, whatever it was. And I am no hillbilly, I'm a redneck and proud of it. Or what?
It was good. It was good stuff.
Yeah, I remember cross country. I love the Havoc. Yeah, it was weird design to lay down. Jared could speak to that more, I guess, if that was an actual design. I think we talked about.
He's going to go, hell no.
We did talk about this a long time ago, but there was a tank, and I don't remember which one, that is designed where the operator is actually heavily reclined. It's like super laid back, relaxing. But
really,
yeah, as far as as more prone on your belly driving, I think that's something that the Army fiddled with, never committed to, and really we only saw it happen in Batman with those Christopher Nolan movies.
You know what, I was thinking of that's exactly where we saw it.
I think there was definitely a thought process behind it, but I can't think of any vehicles that actually made it into military inventory that had that prone driving. I'm ready to be wrong if someone maybe in the chat or one of the listeners comes in and says, "Hey, there was this vehicle," because they certainly did the heavy recline on the tank, of which I can't remember its name, but I don't know about the prone driving.
But yeah, no, I like Cross Country. He's not one of my favorites, but he is very memorable to me. Like I say, both in the comic and the cartoon, he's just very, very Southern and he stands out for that reason to me. So I like Cross Country. I got Cross Country and Havoc, but I think they're boxed up right now. I still haven't got anything unboxed when my son moved out of here. So, but I do like, that's when I had to go out and rebuy because yeah, I like both the Rhino or the Havoc, whichever you want to call it. And I'd be curious. I'd love to talk to somebody and find out where these other names came from. Maybe these were potential names there for the vehicles and they changed them or what happened. Because these were supposed to be edited and cleared up, but apparently not. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Cutter.
Well, that's me.
Oh,
well,
very fitting.
How appropriate.
It is appropriate. Well, it was about this time that them Duke boys knew they was in a whole heap of trouble. But we're not going to talk about them right now. We're going to talk about my man Cutter. He is the hovercraft pilot. His name is, and I am not making this up, Skip Stone. He has alternate code names, though. Speedboat, Dry Dock, Hurricane, and Cruiser. I had no idea he had alternate names. And those
Dry Dock? How do you get that?
That was making me for many years.
I had a bad case of Dry Dock one time. You know what? Never mind.
Brad,
they said those. I just want to, as an aside, those code names all sound like the nicknames frat boys would give each other.
So
Anyway.
names in college, basically.
Yeah, basically. Primary military specialty, hovercraft captain. Secondary military specialty, special services. He coached the women's swim team, which I guess would explain some of the alternate code names. His birthplace, not on the coast, surprisingly, is Kinsley, Kansas, smack dab in the middle of the country, I would imagine. His grade is lieutenant junior grade. Cutter badgered his congressman for 2 years for an appointment to Annapolis until he realized his family lacked two essential requirements: power and influence. He opted for the Coast Guard Academy at New London, Connecticut, since it was a competitive entrance exam. Kinsley, Kansas is exactly as far from San Francisco as it is from New York City, 1,561 miles. Why would someone born and raised as far away as you can get from either ocean ever consider a life at sea? The combination of an iron will and a contrary nature, laced with a truly bizarre sense of humor, might explain it. When Cutter found out that the G.I. Joe team didn't include a single Coast Guardsman, he raised such a stink that the Coast Guard top brass had no choice but to pull all the strings necessary to alleviate the situation. It also gave the brass a way to get Cutter out of their hair. Cutter is a favorite of mine, partially because of the connection to the Whale, which is, of course, as we all know, the greatest G.I. Joe vehicle ever made. And I know Ken will agree with me there.
Yep.
And secondly, because he rocks a Boston Red Sox hat, which I tend to do myself. And if I haven't shaved for a few days, I kind of look like Cutter. And I also wear a life vest everywhere I go.
That's just safety.
Kevin, thoughts on Cutter?
Shout out to my friend William J. of The Finest, who has the most iconic Cutter costume. And having partied with him while he was in costume, we've created several memories I'm going to keep close to the chest. But another costume that I will never do because it's wearing a Boston type of headgear. So, but I love Cutter. I love that he gets some action in the comics. I love the fact that he gets some action in the TV series. But more importantly, his vehicle was as we all probably agree, and Brad and I love the Whale, the best G.I. Joe vehicle of all time. And I love his backstory, and I know there's more to him coaching the women's swim team there. I want to learn more about that. And again, heads up to my friend William J., who would he did his homework on Cutter when he was in costume, and he was in full character, which made it scary. Love you, William.
Dave.
Definitely Cutter. I think, yeah, I agree. The Whale is a fantastic vehicle, and I assume he came with the Whale. He's just a cool character. I like a guy who wears a cap, and what a masculine look there. He's got his gun out, and he's just ready to go. So, no, he's a cool character. And I think he's one of those ones. He's a real sell when paired with the vehicle. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, he did come with the whale. Yeah, great character. Like it was Kevin or Brad was saying. Yeah, they did very well. They showed him in the cartoon, the comic. They gave him some great appearances. So yeah, I like Cutter. Not one of my favorites as far as like the top 10 or whatever, but no, they did a great job with him. Jarrod.
Yeah, Cutter breaks the mold of forgettable vehicle driver, I think, because his vehicle is so good.
Yeah.
And he's a very simple design. Again, when I look at it, I look at things through the lens of Kevin now, and I'm like, this would be a pretty easy costume to do.
It is. And this is one of those good introductory costumes to try to get into, because you would think Snake Eyes might be easy, but it is not, because there's so many variants and you have to choose which one and make sure you get it right. But Cutter is one of those great introductory costumes.
It makes total sense, So yeah, I think Cutter's cool. Very cool. I will probably mention it on your show before, but I have to mention that my sister had this toy telephone that was like electronic rotary toy, and it had this motor in it, and she ended up breaking the phone. And my dad is very gifted with these kind of things, and he took the little motor out and it ran off of a 9-volt battery, and dad stuffed it into my whale. And now so I had a switch on it that I could put it in like a pool, and like the kiddie pool or the bathtub or whatever, and flip the switch and it would just go, because you put a propeller on the motor. Like, that's my dad.
Nice.
And this is a great memory I have of that. So I just want to
That's awesome.
Put that out there. And then I want to put a challenge to you guys. Since Cutter is one of Brad's favorites, I think Brad from now on gets to call him Cutter. The rest of us have to choose between Speedboat, Dry Dock, Hurricane, and Cruiser, and only refer to them as that. And like, when people are like, what are you talking about? You'd be like, Cruiser, the guy who drives the whale.
Yep.
And when they're like, his name is Cutter, you're like, no, it's Dry Dock.
Yeah, it's Dry Dock. Yeah.
So anyway, and one small, tiny little thing I found that's not matching with the file card. Here he is Skip No Middle's name Stone. On the file card, he is Skip A Stone.
Oh.
Skip A Stone.
Skip A Stone.
I see what they did there.
Yeah, I'd never realized that. Okay, moving on. Gavin, would you like to take this next guy?
Yes. All right. Next, we have codename Deep Six, Diver Shark Driver, file name Malcolm R. Willoughby, primary military specialty Diver, second military specialty small craft pilot motorized, birthplace Baltimore, Maryland, grade PO, second master's driving rating. Deep Six never won any awards for being friendly. In fact, he became a driver so he could be alone. One of the youngest salvage drivers to be certified on the Eastern Seaboard, he joined the Navy because he thought that civilian divers were too gregarious and forward. His hobbies include bottle cap collecting, solitaire, and the New York Times crossword puzzles. Over 50 Navy divers applied for the coveted final requirements, and 8 of them washed out in the practical application testing. Out for the 4 finalists, Deep Six could hold his breath the longest. Torpedo says, quote, down in the depths where light don't reach and the water pressure can crush you like an eggshell, that's where Deep Six likes it. He can keep it. And I just want to go forward real quick with this. I always thought that the Deep Six was a cool looking figure, and I was blown away by fellow Finest member. I got to give him a shout out here. Alan B from our Pennsylvania garrison actually made up a full Deep Six costume, and I got to hang out with him while the costume was on. And he had the whole bubble thing over his head. I had to ask him, is this thing heavy? He's like, yes. Is this thing hard to breathe in? Yes. And it says, man, I give you all the props for doing this. It looks so freaking cool. And when he first premiered that thing, everybody was just like, I can't believe someone did a freaking Deep Six, and it looks great.
Very nice. And David, what you say about Deep Six?
Yeah. Huge fan of this design. He's funny in the comics when he shows up because he is a man of few words.
Yes.
Very similar to his file card. And I was just thinking, this finest stuff, this must be one of the hardest people to ever try to do. So I think you just mentioning that your friend did this is amazing. I mean, that shows me A, passion, and B, ambition to bother doing Deep Six, because you could pick almost anybody. He's got to be one of the hardest ones. I mean, that's a full on. I mean, to do it well, that's a full on, like almost like armor. Yeah, Deep Six is cool. I like him when he shows up in the comic. The way he just barely speaks, goes straight down to the bottom, just basically hates everybody. It's cool. Yeah. He's
I
a cool
got a
character.
picture. Can I show the picture of Alan here? If you can share the screen there.
Yeah, let me find. There you are. Oh, I see what you're looking at. There we are.
Check it out.
That is good.
Very nice.
Isn't that
Wow.
cool?
That's
Yeah,
impressive.
that's very cool. Yeah, and he really captures the spirit of it. That's excellent. Yeah.
Well
Great
done.
job.
Well
Yes,
done.
it's a great job on that.
It'd be funny to turn up with him like that, and you take the lightest possible one. The G.I. Joe, all you have to do is wear a mustache and maybe a hat and be like, yeah, look at me.
Cutter. I'm sorry. Hurricane. Yes, you play as
Drydock.
Hurricane.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah. Deep Six came with the shark. I've got that again. I think it's probably boxed up still. Only got so much room out right now. But yeah, I've got I like the shark and Deep Six. Yeah, and the like a lot of the ones we've mentioned, it seems like the cartoon didn't read the file cards. This one here, he was more in line like this in the cartoon, and definitely in the comic. Yeah, Larry definitely wrote him as the loner, and very much, that when they introduced him, he was very hot, not necessarily hostile, but he was very antisocial with the other Joes.
Yeah,
so.
he was. I remember it.
much
There's a whole issue where he goes in the water and he just barely talks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great, good character. Jared?
I think you guys have said it all. I mean, who doesn't love Buzz Lightyear? It's clearly who this is.
Yeah,
Buzz Lightyear was cool.
This is the ultimate bathtub toy, right?
Yep.
Didn't he come with like a little thing you could press to dive and
Snap.
surface? Like
Little air pump, whatever.
yeah. So like this is a bathtub toy all day long.
Yep.
You had the shark too, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool.
Brad?
I'm sure the classified version of the figure will be a deluxe version, and it'll be really
Oh, yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Deep Six was always one of those favorite Joes. I think because he was such a cold fish. I think he was called a cold fish in the
Yes.
comic. And there's always that one guy who's very quiet, not terribly friendly, keeps to himself, but is really good at his job. And I think it was a clever move on Hasbro's and Larry's part to make the deep sea diver the guy who just likes being down there at the bottom of the ocean under unrelenting pressure with no people around him.
Yep. Very much so. We'll go and move on to the next one. In fact, this is probably the last one. We'll end with David.
Okay. Dial tone. File name Jack S. Morelli. Primary military speciality is radio telecommunications. Secondary military specialty is infantry. Birthplace Eugene, Oregon. Grade E4. Dial tone built his own crystal set when he was 10. By 14, he was part of a CB net and had his own ham station by the time he was 16. Daltone made all his own equipment, buying parts with quarters earned bagging groceries. He saw the army as a means to furthering his education in his chosen field, and quickly found that instead of a stepping stone, it was a goal in itself. Manning a radio in the field wasn't just passing time, it was a job with a purpose. One of the scariest things that can happen to you out in the field is to lose contact with your base. That means you are alone. No artillery support, no airstrikes, no medevac, no extraction, no nothing. The cavalry ain't coming until the man with the radio tells them to. I think Daltone's, he's in my top 10. I'm not sure if there's been a classified figure, but just looking at this, I'm like, yes, please give me more.
Not yet.
I mean, obviously the artist like Daltone who did the cover, because Daltone is out front and center. Like he's like the biggest character in G.I. Joe. He's just a cool character. And I like the way they've given him like almost like a surplus of equipment to make it really clear that he's a communications guy. and we've all seen those movies, those war movies where they're calling in. You see a lot of Vietnam, like calling in the airstrike or getting the the choppers to come down and pick people up. I think it's cool, and I think he's a 10 out of 10 character design personally. He's awesome.
Yeah, I like Dial Tone. Nice. He replaced Breaker. If I'm not mistaken, it was Darren from the G.I. Joe Canada group is a big fan of Dial Tone, if I'm not mistaken. So, apparently whoever did the cover, is a big fan of Dial Tone. Jack Morelli, wasn't Morelli the editor that we were back on earlier?
Oh, really? Is that right?
Is that what I said?
I bet he got this one right.
Yeah.
But and real quick from the chat, Zazel from Zazel's Club has shown up. Hey, Zazel, glad you could join us.
What's up?
Also in the chat, we have from the Facebook group, we have Sean saying that he wishes he could be more active on here because he loves the Order of Battle. He has family over, and he thinks that they're starting to worry about his kidney functions because he's excused himself to go to the restroom as many times to check in to see where we're at.
That's funny.
Glad you're able to check in with us. But yeah, so Dial Tone. Yeah, I do like Dial Tone. Yeah, he came out about the time I got into buying the figure, so I definitely had that figure. I know he is prominent in the cartoon. So yeah, great character from Eugene, Oregon, up a state from where I'm at, is on my side of the country. He was very much into communications. He built his own crystal set when he was 10. So yeah, he's very much into the whole communication thing. Very nice. Jarrod, say about Dial Tone.
This is a classic case of a figure that, due to really good design that Dave mentioned, really saves it, because otherwise I'm like, why in the world would I want a replacement for Breaker? Like, Breaker is great with his bubble gum and he's classic and he's OG. And so they bring out this new one. And let's be honest, this is where, and I know Brad's going to nod his head when I say this is where G.I. Joe starts to take a turn to the fantastical, because his costume design is like nothing. I mean, I was a comms officer my whole career. I saw nothing like this. I tried to dress like this. Once again, much like the sports jersey, they said no. But it just works in figure form. And so, yeah, you couple this and maybe we'll get to him 18 episodes from now, but Mainframe is the other guy who does communications. And it just, I don't know. On one hand, it's like, I don't want a replacement for Breaker, but on the other hand, the sort of the Breaker Mainframe Dial Tone triad is kind of a cool thing, mainly because I think the designs for them each one are different enough to make them interesting, and Dial Tone is probably the most interesting of the comm guys.
Yes, I agree there. Brad?
I agree with what Jarrod said about the design. He's certainly very much more on the, I guess, what was the cutting edge of technology for 1986, which I hate to break it to everybody, was a considerable amount of years ago. I'm how do I put this in a way that doesn't insult Dial Tone or the memory of Breaker? With me, with design, I'm always more of a you kind of function following form in a lot of these things, where I kind of prefer the other approach. All these bells and whistles, all these gadgets, I look at it and I see a lot of things that can go wrong. Experimental equipment, you get some sand in it, somebody breathes on it and all of a sudden it breaks down. It's like an iPhone or an Android phone. It's like it worked and then it didn't work for some reason. So as an action figure, though, he's pretty fantastic looking. I never owned him, but a friend of mine had him, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. Just the design of it. You could sort of tell that they were really pushing the what they could accomplish with the 3 3/4 inch line together. So Dial Tone as a character doesn't really register with me, but as an action figure, he was quite memorable.
And Kevin?
I had Dial Tone as an action figure. I thought it was cool, that backpack that he had with the little headset that came down. I never questioned why his backpack was so big until technology caught up with this, because I think everything in that backpack can be held in my iPhone here. But I loved the look of it. I just thought he was cool. I liked how he had the beret. And if you don't mind sharing a picture here, I want to give a shout out here to fellow Finest member Chris from Missouri did a great dial tone right there. If you can show that picture real
That is
quick,
good.
It looks great.
There you go.
And I've seen some other finance members do dial tone as well, but I want to give a shout out there.
Oh, great
Thought that
look.
was
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah.
It is a great look, and it's funny when you look at these things, which is one of the things I really love about the cosplay community is you see them in the real world, and you go, okay, I could see that working. It looks more realistic in the real world, even though it's this very outlandish sci-fi kind of approach to it than the action figure in the drawing does. Like I could see that being the classified look right there.
Could you imagine having imagine that was real weight, and
gosh, yeah.
and you're under fire? Can you imagine being that guy? You're like, Jesus Christ, like, you know, thanks guys.
Carrying 40 pounds of high-tech expensive equipment.
Hopefully that's armored enough. You can turn around and use a bulletproof vest, or
I mean, I'd be like, are we trying to reach Mars? How far away are these people we're calling?
But yeah, the movie producers and directors they need to take a look at some of these cosplay players, because these cosplayers on a more minimal budget do some fantastic looking characters.
It looks better than anything that was in that movie. I mean,
I've seen in terms of like Marvel and DC, I've seen cosplayers who look better than what the movies have done. Not every time, but I have seen it, and I'm like, if someone can do that who isn't a Hollywood professional,
what's stopping you?
come on.
Definitely. Very nice. Well, I originally planned on trying to get more done this issue, but we got a lot more talking going on than I expected, which again is we had some great conversation. I loved it. So
we'll pick up on Doc next time, right?
Yes. So we're going to
blame Kevin.
Half the issue this time. Next time we'll start back. We'll come up with Doc, who we'll talk about him. But we're going to go and end this here. So let me go and pull this out.
It is my fault. Sorry, guys.
And no, it's
probably my fault. I'm sorry.
Dave's got to go also, and
no, I got to go. I got to go too.
And Brad's got everyone's got to go. So it took long.
We all got to go.
More talk than I expected. So
you could always go solo through the rest of the 4 books, Aaron. Just
Jared will sit here
for the next 7 hours.
Me and Jared will sit here talking the next day. But no, I want to thank you guys very much for joining us. Hang on, let me zoom in on Mr. Reitzel and Jarrod artist guy. Very good, very nice.
Nice. The Baroness. She looks so cute. Look at that smile.
I want to thank Sean and Zazel and who else was in the chat today? Oh, Hines, of course. I want to thank you guys very much for joining in and chiming in the chat. And anyone else that was watching, I appreciate you guys. Let me go ahead and go back. And tired of looking at Jared. No. So that's going to do it for this episode. Next episode, we'll cover the last half of this first issue. And so instead of being originally I thought about being 2 episodes. It looks like this is actually going to take 8 episodes probably to get out, but that's right. As long as we get some good conversation, that's half the battle.
It is.
And knowing that is
knowing that that's half the battle is half the battle.
I was told there'd be no math. But anyways, that's going to do it for this time. Jared, do you want to pimp out anything you're doing right now?
Absolutely. Certainly. If you want to talk more G.I. Joe with me, come over to the Longbox Crusade podcast network. We have G.I. Joe Chronicles over there. We are talking more about the Devil's Due era, and we are also doing some special missions chat, and we also have a show called Outpost where we cover all kinds of things, and that's just G.I. Joe. We have a bunch of other shows that we do. We talk about action films. We talk a lot about different comics and stuff like that, so that's all at Longbox Crusade. Now, as far as I go personally, you can see right there, I am at Yard Sale Artist on X, Facebook, Instagram. And as usual, for your watching, viewing audience, I will be putting this up for sale on my social medias later today. I'll probably be asking $30 for it. But if you saw it here and you message me and say, "Hey, I want that Baroness that you did," we'll knock off $5. So $25 for you. You just got to mention the fact that you saw me draw it here on the show. Thank you, Aaron.
Very nice, and thank you, sir. I appreciate you doing that for the listeners, viewers of the show. Very good of you. I don't care what Pat tells me. And Brad, if people want to hear more from you or see more of your work.
Well, I gave up social media for Lent in 2019. So the only place you're really going to find me outside of this podcast and any other podcasts that want to have me on is at my website, bradabraham.com, which I'm kind of taking a hiatus from that too, as I'm sort of up to my neck researching my next book, which is going to be my first nonfiction book. So I'm looking forward to delving into that and getting back into posting things on the website in the new year at some point.
So
Very
really,
nice.
the only way is if Brad gives his phone number. You can call him.
Yeah, basically.
Let's go and put Brad's phone number up on the screen. Oh. And Kevin and Freedom. You have more from you.
You can find me on the Fandom Podcast Network. We're on YouTube and all your podcast catchers, where we have a plethora of shows under the Fandom Podcast Network umbrella, including Bloody Kings, our Highlander podcast, Time Warp, where we cover a year of movies. Our favorite movie podcast is called Couch Potato Theater. We have got Star Trek, Star Wars, a little bit of everything. So make sure you check us out on the Fandom Podcast Network. Give us a like and subscribe. We'd much appreciate it. And you can find me at Kevin at Spartan_Phoenix on X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and on Threads.
Very nice. And finally, Dave. I know you got a podcast out there.
Hey, guys.
See more.
Yeah, I've got a podcast. Firstly, thank you for having me on. Signal of Doom is my podcast. It's a weekly show. You can find us on Facebook, X. It's good to see someone's using Threads. I certainly haven't been on there in about 7 years, but just a pleasure to be here and talk Joe. I'm learning a little something every time. And when we get to Spirit, I reckon I could do an hour just on Spirit. He's my all-time favorite.
Well, he's next time. So
yeah. So thanks, guys, and look forward to next time.
And as for me, right now, I say my main website, Headcast Network's down right now. Working on that, but I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/ G.I. Joe. I'm horrible at this. Something. I've got two different ones. I've got my
Real American Headcast.
Real American Headcast. Yeah.
It's facebook.com/group/G.I. Joe or facebook.com/group/Headcast Network. I'm also over on X. I don't do much X. The doctor said it's bad for me. I got to cut back.
I don't do much XE anymore. I did in the 90s.
But you can find me under G.I. Joe at Headcast Network or various. Just look around. You can find me. I'm also, I think I occasionally post on Threads, but usually it's because Facebook's doing it automatically for me. Facebook to Instagram at Headcast Network. I'm all over the place. And as I posted a few moments ago, you can always call and leave a message at area code 559-500-3182. And I can play those messages on the air.
Ask for Brad.
And when you call in, ask for Brad, a.k.a. Dr. Mindfart. And please leave any message you want for Brad. If you have a complaint about Brad or about anything Brad has said, feel free to call and leave a message there. But no, seriously, thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back probably in next month with another Bravo team next month it'll be a special missions. And then the next month will be the continuation of this episode. So it's going to take me probably 8 episodes to get through Order of Battle. And then probably next year at this rate, I'll be going through G.I. Joe versus Transformers, which
if we just don't have Brad, we'll get through it pretty quick.
You know what? I could cut out Brad and Jared, and that would make things a lot easier.
But it wouldn't make it nearly as fun.
This is true.
True story. As Kevin's sitting there rocking with his freedom.
I wanted to mention, Jared, it was good to see you gave Baroness some nice boobs in that picture. So
I didn't want to. I knew you were going to be on, and I was like,
"Thank you for saying what I was afraid to say."
I was paying attention, and I think that's $30 well spent. I'm sure she'd charge you more in person. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm frustrated on.
So, my final comment on this matter.
From this crew, I wish you all a good day, and remember, knowing is half the battle. Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe. Yo, Joe.
Are you going from you, Jared?
Yo, Joe. I thought I said Yo, Joe. I forgot. I was mesmerized by never mind.
I'm with you. I will thank you, gentlemen, very much. I'm going to stay on here for a minute and do another. I'm going to record the beginning a little bit, correct what I said earlier since I've changed it, but
Don't we have to like sit for the recording upload?
oh, I do. Yeah, I'm
Oh,
going in and
yeah.
then I'll fix it on my own.
Uploading
Going in the
recording.
stream